I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission for Wednesday, December 3rd, 2014. Members of the public wishing to address the Planning Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card and file it with the secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Cards are available in the lobby. Speakers should state their name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Comments must be directed to the commission, not the audience. While the Planning Commission is in session, all in attendance are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Could we have roll call, please?
Nolan, Lajowski.
Here.
Jagiello.
Here.
Isabella. Here. Foster.
Here.
Merck.
Here.
Nicklin.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Isabella, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Okay, public communications is the time set aside during the Planning Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the Commission and will generally be referred to staff and/or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. Is there anybody that wants to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move along. The consent calendar is approved by a roll call vote in one motion. Should any member of the commission wish to discuss or disapprove an item, it must be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate item. We only have one item, which is the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, November 19th, 2014. Could I have a motion on this, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. Could we have a roll call, please?
Lajowski.
Aye.
Jagiello. Yes. Isabella. Yes. Foster.
Yes.
Merck.
Abstain.
Nicklin.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts. Commissioner Lajowski, you want to start us off?
I've visited all the sites. In particular, I visited all the sites today. So I am aware of them, but I have had no contact with the applicants or anything beyond that.
I visited all the sites today and had no contact with the applicants.
Yep.
I also have visited all the sites and have had no contact with the applicants.
Okay, Commissioner Foster.
I'm familiar with all the sites. I've visited them at one time or another. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Nicklin?
I've been to the sites and ex parte contacts.
Thank you. And I rode my bike down the bike path this weekend and looked at all the sites in one little visit. It was very nice. All right, Municipal Advisory Planning Commission Liaison Report. I don't believe we have anything because the last MAC meeting was canceled. Next MAC meeting is December 15th, and Vice Chair Foster is scheduled to attend. That brings us to the public hearing items, and the first item is item number 2. It's Design Review Permit DRP 13-18, a redesign of the approved Craftsman Village Project DRP 0509 from 8 live-work units to 5 live-work units, 1 residential and 2 commercial on the 1.61-acre site located at 611 Pearl Street. Assessor's parcel number 023014140. A mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the original project pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. The nature of the proposed design changes does not require an amended CEQA document. And could we hear from staff on this, please?
Yes, good evening. I'd just like to start with this report with giving you a little bit of background on this particular site. And as stated in your staff report, the first concept review on this property was done in 1987. So you can see there's a long history, and I know some of you commissioners are well aware, but we have a few new commissioners that this will be the first time they're seeing this project. And I think what is important to note is that in 2005, in support of the development of this project for the construction of 8 live-work units in a townhome design fashion, approval was granted for a general plan land use amendment from commercial manufacturing to village mixed use and a zone change from light manufacturing industrial to village mixed use. The commission made a recommendation of approval on a design review permit, and on December 13th, 2005, the City Council granted approval of this permit. There have been, since that time, a number of time extensions and requested and approved. And on January 14th, 2013, the applicant requested an additional extension. And on March 12th, 2013, the City Council granted an extension to March 12th, 2014. So with that, we've been working with the applicants to get this modification application complete with all the submittals, the necessary elements of the submittal. And with that, before the package that's before you tonight, we think is really rather complete. I know the applicant's here and will be giving a presentation after I'm done with my staff report. So we just give a brief description of the project as it exists now, and I can read that into the record if you like. Consists. The revised project involves a request for the development of 8 units in 2 buildings. Building 1 will have 4 two-story live-work units located and fronting along Pearl Street, 1 two-story commercial unit, and 1 story commercial unit fronting on Fulton Street. Building 2 will have one two-story live-work unit located on the southwest corner of the property, and 1 two-story residential unit located on the southwest corner of the property attached to the single live-work unit. The live-work units range from 1,161 square feet to 3,164 square feet, and contain approximately 160 square feet to 200 square feet of commercial workspace on the first floor, and the remaining square footage for residential purposes. The commercial units range in size from 772 square feet to 1,854 square feet. The residential unit located on the southwest corner of the property in Building 2 contains 2,364 square feet in a 2-story structure. So I think to get a better picture of that, the applicant has provided some graphics to kind of list out the square footage and provide you with a graphic of the floor space and the site layout. So I think it's important to note that with the change in the project, they are proposing what they call a rain garden park area with decorative wood trellis shade structures, stone wall benches with view windows, a community barbecue area, center planter, and community art sculpture, group seating, and access to the city Ojai bike trail. Access to the project site is proposed at the 2 existing driveways along Pearl Street and Fulton Street. So I think also important to note is that with the new design, they are proposing shared parking, and there is a shared parking study agreement that's also was provided by the applicant dated April 11th, 2014, which should be included in your packet as attachment D, which evaluated the parking impacts associated with shared visitor and commercial parking usage. So with that, we just go on to provide in the staff report, and I won't read that into the record, just, the standard design criteria they're supposed to use in evaluating buildings. Also provide land use policies and the project's compliance with zoning and general plan policies. And then finally on page 8 of 9, we provide you with the code compliance matrix, which we always do, kind of giving you an idea of what's required by code and what's proposed. And I will point out that this is village mixed use, so it does allow a lot of latitude and discretion in how you look at these things, such as shared parking and the combination between the live-work spaces. And with that, I guess I would just say that staff supports this project and has provided you with a resolution for approval with the standard list of conditions. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have regarding the project.
Thank you, Kathleen. Do we have any questions for staff? Thank you. Could we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, members of the commission and members of staff. Good to be here tonight. I'm here representing Raven Ridge Development. Rick Nielsen is here, the owner and the developer of the project. My associate Shannon Smith is here. She's been intimately involved with the project and knows some of the details that that I might not know. And Bill Millay, the landscape architect, he's also here. If there's any questions about the revised landscape plan, he's here. And the rain garden that was mentioned in the staff report, it's actually a water retention device that was incorporated into the design. We have a PowerPoint presentation. The clicker is not working. We have a little bit of a difficulty. I guess there's some issues with that. And also I was expecting to use my pointer, but with the new technology here, we're not using a pointer, so we're going to manage the best we can on here. I was going to walk you through the changes of before and after, I would say, but it was originally approved in '05, and then by the time we got done with the construction drawings and permits were pulled, the housing market the real estate was in a nosedive at that time, and so the project was put on hold, and then when the market started picking back up again, the owner decided to sell it or to bring in partners to try to develop it with some other folks. He didn't feel like he could absorb all the risk of the project, and there was no takers at the previous design. The banks had problems with the mixed use idea, and developers said they really don't feel like people want to live over the M1 use that we were it was a kind of an experimental idea, and so nobody wanted to buy into it, and so the Raven Ridge folks they said, well, let's rethink this and make it more of a compatible to a residential development. So it's mostly residential now, less commercial, and there's there's no M1. It's all C, commercial and mixed use in the project. We moved the two commercial units over onto the Fulton Street side, and we're pushed the residential off to the west side, kind of segregating the two uses that way. But the mixed use, most of the mixed use units have access to the street. We feel like the street's going to be used quite a bit for guests to come, and those residential units with the mixed use component I think it'll be and be used as commercial. There'll be people, doctors, lawyers, masseuses, artists who will use that space and be able to market their business off that street access. And so we feel like now it's really a great project, and it's going to be financially successful, and yeah, here's the floor plan. Thank you. This is the new revised floor plans that show the new garages. They're more residential garages, and the access is off the street. If you go to the next slide, please. That's the second story, which is all residential, except for the one unit on the commercial unit on Fulton Street. It has a two-story commercial component with a loft open down to the downstairs. This is the before and after site plans, which one of the advantages of this new design is that we reduced the commercial parking considerably. We had a parking study done which justified a shared parking arrangement. I don't know if you saw that in your package, but it justifies the use of commercial during the day and residential at night, and we have restricted the commercial uses to hours between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. so that you can the residential units can use the parking in the evenings. And here's a revised landscape plan, which if you have questions, Bill's here to answer those. He did completely redesign the landscaping from the previous design with a beautiful little community little space in the center there, which we didn't have before. Want to go to the next slide. Square footage is where it says circulation. Those are outside stairwells that we had in the previous design. We no longer have those. It's all internal stairways on each of the residential units. They have their own stairs, and the garage areas is really the M1 use in the previous design. So that square footage number changed considerably from what's called commercial in the new design. The residential grew quite a bit from, you can see the numbers. I don't have my glasses with me, but 7,000 to 12,000 square feet. And then the overall square footage of the project, grew not too much, but a little bit, 16,000 to 19,000. What shrunk was the parking area, and what it also grew was the landscaped area. So I think, we have a give and take there. These are the revised elevations. You can see not much has changed from the previous design. We pretty much maintained the same balance and integrity of the previous design. We just added on the Pearl Street elevation, you can see the extended unit on that side. That's pretty much the biggest change that we had there. Here's our color boards, and that didn't change at all. We're trying to break up the materials to create balance and rhythm and interest in the project, and that was, we're maintaining that from the previous design. And so I'm here again with my associate Shannon and Bill Millay, the landscape architect. If you have any questions for myself or any of us, we're here. Answer questions.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any questions for the owner? I'm just curious, Mark, about how this park interacts with the bike path. Is it open on that side? So you can
we just opened up the fence there, so we wanted to have an access, from the park, or from the project right into the bike path as a feature for the development. So the users can not have to go around the fence. It's it's about 100 feet down the way to get around it, so they can access it directly to the, where the.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we discussed that the last time you guys were here.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well,
Having that,
now it's
having access through there, and then it was like, no, we have to have a fence there. So this is great. I think this progress.
Yeah. All right.
Good. Other questions? Don't you have any questions about the landscaping or anything like that?
No, the landscape plan, I think the choice of plants was great, and I've no.
Anybody else? Questions?
On the landscape plan, you talked about having a rain garden and containing the water on the property. Bill, can you tell us something about that?
Yeah.
Bill Mellett, the landscape architect on the project. We're taking all the water that's on site, roof, parking, any of the areas. It's all directed towards a rain garden in the courtyard area, which is not up there right now, but and it's going to infiltrate into a retention storage area underground. I brought some paperwork on it, but it's, I don't know, I can hand them out. Shows.
Oh, wow. So it's more than just a permeable paving on the top or something.
Yes.
So where is this going to be?
That's going to be in the park area under the permeable paving. So it's actually under the paving, some of it's going to be like a bioswale in the planting areas, and some, because of the size of it, will occur under some of the paving.
So is the parking, all the parking or the road area, is that all pervious?
Yes,
Okay. And the park is landscaping, I guess.
yes.
So how deep does this go?
Well, we need about 20 by 20 by about 30 inches deep to fulfill the requirements of the stormwater management.
Very impressive.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So this is beneath the entire paved area?
Probably just, there's a circular paving area within the kind of little park area there, and we're thinking that it can fit within that area. Because like I say, it's going to be a 400 square feet of retention.
Mm-hmm.
Comes out to about 900
So it's about
cubic
how
feet.
much volume you create using this
Yes.
detail here. And the idea is for the water to permeate in there and find its way to percolate through that system rather than off to the street.
Yeah, and in a large rain event, there could be overflow out of that, but
Sure, but it would
Major.
filter out sediment and
Mhm.
things like.
yes,
And so, but there's an outlet on there too, and that's for
overflow on
overflow.
a major storm event. The
Okay.
idea is to infiltrate as much water as we can on site.
Mhm. Have you selected your pavers yet for
Um,
the type of paving that's
We
going to allow?
we
for-
haven't, it could be an Angelus paver.
Mhm.
It's a permeable paver that has gravel between the joints and allows the water to
Mhm.
percolate into the soil.
Right. Because I know that there's, depending on what paver you use, there's a certain amount of volume that each type of interlocking paver allows.
Yes.
So it's important to select the correct paver
Mhm.
so that water gets through there, right?
And hopefully, most of the water that does fall in the pavers will infiltrate through the paving, but if there is any runoff, it's directed to our detention basin.
Great.
And Bill, would the excess water also be directed into the bioswales at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the first infiltration.
Yeah.
From there into
Into
the
the-
detention pits.
Thanks.
Concept.
Question.
Yeah.
Can you speak to what the process is for securing the community art?
I think Mark would talk to that. He knows.
It's our understanding, we're obliged to have 2% of our project, is that right? 2% of the budget?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, not more than 300,000, so our idea is to, implement that into different architectural features, not just a piece of artwork, but different architectural features, light fixtures, the trellises, different artsy kind of thing. And we can bring that back to you or the Arts Commission for I guess it has to go through the Arts Commission as well, right?
Yeah, there's a public art committee that has to.
Yeah,
go through.
right, yeah. Yeah, so we'll be bringing that back as another submittal, the public.
So it would actually be part of the buildings, the art? would-
Yeah, that's why I like to do it, is spend that money on cool light fixtures, and, we could do some nice custom, copper light fixtures, and the trellis could have some art, like the trellis in the park downtown here, the new park, and things like that, which would be my preference.
Might want to talk to the public art committee and make sure that they're okay
Yeah.
with that. 'cause
Okay, yeah, okay.
They're pretty adamant about being art as well as public.
Yeah, we could do a little both. Maybe
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
yeah.
Mark, go ahead. I just didn't want him to sit down. Go ahead.
Mark, what's the idea of the commercial units? How do you see that working with the other units? Are they to be used by everyone? Are they separate? What
The two commercial units will be, rented out separately, for just it's like a regular commercial unit. Yeah, they could be rented.
to the people on the property, to the folks on the property, or to anyone?
Or to anyone, yeah. If people on the property want to rent it, that'd be great, but it's an open commercial unit. Of course, the units, the office units in the residential units, the mixed-use units there, that would be, of course, be used by the residences. Or, maybe it'd be a separate user there, but that, I would think it'd be the residents there.
Other questions?
Yeah. The intent of the VMU is a little ambiguous, I think, the way it's, well, maybe ambiguous is not the right word, but there's a lot of discretion involved in interpreting what does that look like.
Right.
And you have to look at the context of where the project is located, what's going on in terms of the demographics, that sort of thing. And I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think it's real positive to be able to provide a workplace where someone might live. And it's admirable that you've included them in each 5 of the units, the 5 live-work units. A concern I have is the size that you've allocated for them, because you have fairly substantial, good-sized units going on here in terms of total square footage. And when you look at these units that you're allocating towards the commercial aspect, they're ranging in width from what I'm reading, 10.5 to maybe they average out around 11 feet wide. They're a little longer. Then you have this accessible bathroom going on along with it.
Right.
It just, I was just curious to know what your, to me, it just seems like a glorified bedroom, you know, honestly, you know, in terms of its size. That's what I equate it with.
It's an office size, yeah. It's
All right.
and the intention is to be a residential office, and you know, and so that's I think they're about 300 square feet each of them, and so
300 square feet?
I think that's a.
Yeah, most of them are like around, you know, they range from 230 to, the largest one is 292, and that's in that 3,700 square foot unit. So they're not even, you know, percentage-wise, we're not even looking at 10% of the actual habitable space.
Right.
I think, in terms of, if you break it down. I don't know, I'm just a little concerned that I understand the need to sell the residential end of it. Yeah, but also the idea with the VMU is to create, you know, certain economic vitality, that sort of thing. And so I'm not quite convinced on the size that you have, Mark, you know, in terms of, they seem a little small to me, that they don't, you know, that they could, pretty limiting. There are obviously some professions that could work in that, but it's pretty small quarters for, and I'm just, would like, I may be the only one up here that thinks that. But, I thought it was worth mentioning, and I'd like to hear other input on it, so.
Sure.
Well, somebody could they could take both those units and have one big thing, could they, if they wanted to?
If they wanted to buy 2 units? you're
Yeah,
saying?
I mean, if a person had a business and they needed more space, then
They could buy one of the commercial units, sure.
that's what I'm thinking. They could
Yeah.
they could put the 2 of them together and have a whole.
Yeah, they could be a big, if they wanted to have that commercial unit, sure. Or both of them, too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, Chester, yeah.
Well, yeah, well, like he said in his talk earlier, that the design is geared more toward professionals. It's not geared toward large businesses. And that's the nature of what they think is going to work here. And in that respect, an office is an office. And that's the nature of that particular type of business. You don't need that type of space. So I see it's.
Albeit a small office. I mean, and I realize that it's a subjective read on it, but
Yeah.
it really comes down to defining what are you looking for in the VMU district, and does that satisfy, you know, the need?
Well, and what was the original intention of the first approval? Because there was a zone change to light manufacturing industrial, so, which included that. So, did it say that there's a zone change to village mixed use? So there was an intention at one point to have industrial use there, correct? By the planning commission
Yeah,
and by the
this
city
was-
council?
Yeah, that whole site was originally a industrial kind of site.
The zone change was from M1 to a village mixed
To
use.
the village mixed use.
Yeah, and so the idea originally was that we'd maintain the M1 use in that original design and add residential to an M1 use. But like I said in my presentation, in practicality, it was I don't think we didn't know anybody who had done that before. And so when when developers got a hold of it, when the bankers got a hold of it, they're all like, we don't think this is gonna work. It was kind of an idea that we had that we didn't think it was gonna work, or they didn't think it was gonna work. And so by having it mostly residential with a home office, it is a home office component, I think we are staying not to the M1 use, but to the village mixed use intention, which the reason we were granted the zone change was because there was village mixed use right next door. And so it's just a continuation of the village mixed use next door. So it's we're right at the breaking point between M1 and village mixed use. So we just added one more lot to the village mixed use zoning in that area, so.
And that appears consistent with that other project, which is going to come, right next door to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'd say the live-work, village mixed use is a little bit of a challenge for lenders because they don't like that. They don't like things that are residential and commercial. So that's a little bit of fish or fowl. So it totally makes sense that the M1 is eliminated. And I would also say that, the village mixed use is a really great idea in principle, but what I've seen around town is, people end up securing the spaces and then they don't really, even if they have a larger space, they don't end up really utilizing it as a business space. So just from a business point of view, it makes sense that they have allocated more space to residential. I don't know how you make people live and work and really work in that same space, but maybe making it smaller, maybe that will encourage people to do so.
If I could just add, I think the fact that they're right on the street like that, and there's opportunity for signage, it lends itself very easily to be a commercial space or to be a home office, commercial space in those office units. They have, great access, great visibility from the street for that purpose.
I think it's kind of geared towards more, chiropractors and
Professionals.
yeah,
Yeah.
masseuses and that kind of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly, yeah.
Does you included handicap bathrooms?
Yeah,
But they're really not ADA bathrooms, right?
No, they are ADA, yeah.
Oh, you're getting the wheelchair accessibility in that, because when I scaled it, it didn't meet the 5-foot turning radiuses, and it's there? Okay, you want to address that, please?
On the plans, we called out for if they want to make it, it has the circle, the turning radius. I also mapped out the leg room for the wheelchair under the sink and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they do all fit there.
And you also have bathtub in there, which if you're going to have a bathtub, I don't believe that would fall under the guidelines of ADA because of accessibility to it. Normally it would be a ADA accessible shower. Did you consider that at all, or is this something that?
I think that's something we could consider.
Yeah. Well, it's going to have to be ADA compliant. I guess that's my question to staff. If it's a commercial unit, is it required to be ADA compliant?
Yes, I didn't realize it had a bathtub in it, but yes, that's the whole issue with truly commercial units, is that they, it's different than having a home occupation from a residential unit.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they would have to have the ADA compliant bathroom. So I'm a little bit, kind of surprised. I didn't realize it had a bathtub in it. I guess I just didn't see that part in it. So we could check into that,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a good call.
I mean, a bunch. Typically, we'd have the path of travel and the whole 9 yards, right?
You're right, it would be an ADA shower without a lip or anything. You just roll right into it,
So accessibility to these commercial units are from the sidewalk and the street. It would be, is what I'm seeing here, because otherwise you have to pass through a garage to get to the unit, right? And through the main house. So
Yeah, they all
I guess
have
that's a
the-
legitimate path of travel. I didn't really examine it. I'm just putting that out there. That's something that certainly is going to have to be addressed in all this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this project? I don't have any speakers cards, but anybody want to come forward? I will close the public hearing. All right, commissioners, do we have further debate?
Would this project be eligible, I guess this is a question for staff, would this project be eligible for the density bonus under affordable housing?
I don't think that they're if they wanted to propose affordable housing, but I don't think they are proposing any. It's all market rate, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
But, okay. Well,
Yes, if they wanted to increase density, they could always do that, but then, there'd be the offset. They'd have to provide affordable housing.
Yeah, I guess, I just kind of echo Commissioner Foster's concerns, as though it seems like, I don't know, I think this might be a broader question or about what actually is the intent here. I know in this letter provided by Mr. Whitman, it says that, that realtors believe there's not a market in Ojai for a project geared towards blue-collar-like entrepreneurs. It is of this developer's opinion that the Ojai market will support white-collar type live-work units. And I just, wonder how much consideration we should give to that into the application of the approval here. Because we're definitely changing the original intent.
Yeah, well, that's kind of been the history of this project. It started out as a very industrial kind of project. It was, I can remember the original, well, not the 87 submittal, but back in the 90s somewhere. Yeah, and it was fascinating. It was like, boy, that would be really interesting if it came through, but not very feasible in terms of getting financing for it and so on. So the whole thing has evolved over the years into what you see here is probably the most likely scenario to actually get built.
It seems to make more sense.
Yeah.
I mean, even though there's this, home office will be used far more than, especially in a work-live situation. If there was light manufacturing there or something like that, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. All the work-live housing units in Ventura, most of them are for professionals. They're very similar in design. They have an office in the front. I think
I think you make a good point. I think the context of the neighborhood really plays big in this. We're looking at a project off a Signal here, and it's closer to downtown. I think our expectations would possibly be a little different as we look at this transition neighborhood, which is dominated by residential on one side and manufacturing on the other. It seems to be that an intermediate transition with this type of use here. Ideally, I'd like to see a market there and business activity moving around. But when we talk to realtors, there's a serious question whether or not that's a viable alternative.
All right. Well.
Yeah, I'd like to say, just in commenting, I like the architecture. I think it's great. Landscape, great job. I think it's going to be a beautiful project. And you guys have you paid attention to the detail as in terms of the building, the way it faces the public right-of-ways and all that. it's really pleasing to look at. And there's enough interest going on to create something that I think is going to be a benefit, to the community in a lot of ways. So I enjoyed the architecture. I like the way the placement of the trees, the attention paid towards the permeability of the site. A lot of this is dictated by the state now, but to do it right, it takes some good forethought. So there's a lot of positives going on. And the parking issue, I think, is the last. It is what it is. I think we've always been somewhat flexible in that regard. Good project.
Lawrence, do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, just I echo what Steve said, but also for me it was pleasing to see from the original design to the new one with the landscape added into it, which made it, it's always good to see some green around some buildings. So.
Well, I'm excited at the possibility of actually getting this project built, which would be, be really fun. Although I'm going to miss having the whole welding yard there and everything. Yeah. Anyway, would someone like to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion for approval of Craftsman Village Design Review Permit DRP 13.18-18, a modification to DRP 0509 for an 8-unit mixed-use development located at 611 Pearl Street.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Lajowski,
No.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Isabella,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Merck,
Yes.
Nicklin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. We expect great things. Thanks, Mark. All right, we will move on to item 3, which is a conditional use permit CUP 1405 and design review permit DRP 14-12 for a 2-story single-family residence replacement that was destroyed by fire in a guest house with a full bathroom, not accessible from the main unit at 303 Bald Street. Assessor's parcel number is 0230141,280. The general plan land use designation and zoning classification of the property is village mixed use. A categorical exemption has been prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. And could we hear from staff on this, please?
Yes, excuse me, all right. So as you will note, this is at 303 Ball Street and somewhat in kind of the same vicinity that we're talking about.
Right down the street.
A lot of the projects of late. And it is located where the Pearl Street extension is supposed to go through. And so while it looks like an interior lot at this point in time, the city has, in fact, obtained that easement to have that right-of-way go through. So this will eventually become a corner lot. And with that, I would just provide for you some basics on this project, which is, it is a 8,133.5 square foot vacant lot. Vacant because the single-story residence and garage were destroyed by fire at this property. So the applicant is proposing to rebuild, and as we indicated in the staff report, it's village mixed use. It is also subject to design review because it's 2-story, and a CUP because it also includes a guest house on this particular project. I think one of the things that we noted for, and maybe I'm not sure if it was provided in your staff report or not, but the original design of this project came into staff with 2 driveways, and we needed them to redesign to provide just one single driveway to the code requires that single-family residential uses have a single-car driveway and limit the width of the property, the frontage of the property to the it restricts the amount of driveway and driveway cut that you can have. And with that, we received a redesign of this project back to one driveway. And with that, I guess I'll just go through the general review of it, which is that, again, we've provided with you the design review criteria for it and the context of the neighborhood. I believe you have pictures in your packet that show you the context of the neighborhood, and as you all indicated, that you also just drove the neighborhood. And so with that, there's also, staff's provided you with the findings and the appropriateness of the size and character of the proposal, and how it blends in with the neighborhood, its general plan and zoning consistency. And as we state with most projects, we provide the categoric exemption for the project as part of our environmental review. And in this particular case, it's Class 3 exemption. And with that, I really don't have anything to highlight in this project other than to once again note that it is a guest house. And we have had a lot of conversation on this about whether or not, with the CUP for guest house, whether or not you want to include a deed restriction and make sure the person that comes subsequent after, or the successors in interest, would then be aware of the fact that it's not a second unit, to avoid the kind of issues that we've had in the last year of dealing with the compliance program. And that's the only added note I have on this project, and we have provided a resolution with conditions of approval. And as always, I'm open to any questions that you may have. What?
Thank you.
Sherry's pointing at me over here. We're like a little team over here. We have color boards and, and the color rendering of the project. And I'm going to pass those around now.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen. Do we have questions for staff?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
There's no minimum lot size for VMU for guest house?
You mean maximum?
No, minimum. There's no minimum parcel size required for VMU for guest house?
I don't think so. Is there?
There is.
Yeah. Would you like me to look it up in the code? I mean, I don't believe so.
I mean, I think this is big enough regardless. It's 90-something, but,
Residential is 20,000,
yeah. I thought it was,
Have your mic on there, Sharon?
You're talking about a minimum lot size to actually have a guest house
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah. It's pretty. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Any other questions for staff while we're looking this up?
Was a solar study required because it's a residential, or is the BMU exempted from that? or-
I don't think so. I think it's all single family. We looked that up and it was not commercial, but, oh, we talked about it. You and I talked about that, didn't we? That's what it was, yeah. Yeah, what?
No, we-
Yeah, only for residential, so. And I think that staff is just getting used to the implementation of that solar because it was adopted, but the implementation or the effective date was so far down the road that we're just kind of hitting that because you have to actually have pulled your building permit by January. So these folks, they could probably go underneath it, but I believe it was provided in here.
But you're saying that, so the understanding is, for all of us, commercial and VMU is exempt from the solar study analysis. Okay?
Doesn't have that standard.
Residential, single and multi. Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's code that if they build this guest house, it has to be, one of the units has to be owner occupied.
No.
It's not.
No, they're gonna,
That's a second dwelling,
No, that's what I mean.
Okay,
what I
so
said.
guest house.
a guest
Oh,
house,
second.
yeah, it's a
Okay.
guest house,
Oh,
so
it's a guest house.
It's not a
Oh.
unit that can be rented.
Yeah.
Okay.
so if I'm looking at this correctly, there's no parking for the guest house? Is that,
That's right.
So you were looking at this, conditions of approval.
A minimum parcel shall be 20,000 square feet for properties located in residential zoning district. No minimum parcel area shall be required for properties in VMU zoning district.
For guest house.
Guest houses.
Thank you for checking, Sherry. Right.
7,
Huh?
2 of 7.
okay. Do we have further questions for staff? Is that like,
We
okay.
just want some, I guess, some more clarification on
Okay.
this. Conditions of condition E and attachment A states that conditions of approval require that a guest house be occupied by the property owner and its guests and cannot be rented or leased to another party. This condition will also apply to the guest house. It kind of a little redundant there, but, so, did I hear you was that contradicted in what I just heard you guys say, or?
What did you read?
The conditions of approval, letter E, there's a statement that says, conditions of approval require that a guest house be occupied by the property owner and its guests, cannot be rented or leased to another party.
Yeah, that's true. And I had gotten a call today and I didn't believe that there were conditions that, and I guess the condition that would implement that finding, because that's a finding that you're stating there. The condition that would be implementing that finding would be condition number 4 on the next page, 4 of 7, which would say then, the guest house shall not contain kitchen facilities, definition of a guest house, and, per the definition of a guest house, and shall be occupied for the sole use of the members of the resident family, temporary guests, or person permanently employed on the premises. Again, all I was trying to say is that it's fine, the conditions there. I think you just need to have a little dialogue about whether you want a deed restriction recorded to make sure that people, there's always that issue, this has come up with the compliance program, whether people really knew what they had and what they didn't have.
Right. And a deed restriction is one of the instruments that puts it legally, documents it legally for.
Yeah,
Right,
carries over.
Carries over,
from
yes.
ownership.
But this is different than the deed restriction we were talking about with the second dwelling. This is broader. This condition
This
is
is-
much broader than.
It's more restrictive.
This is, the one in the second dwelling
No,
is
this
more-
one is. This one is saying you can't rent it. You cannot rent it at any time to someone. It is for your guests, people of the or, you know, someone employed at the family, someone who lives with you, or a guest. It's not to a third party.
I see what you're saying. But a person permanently employed on the premises is not necessarily a family member.
No, I'm not, that's right. Three different things. You can have a temporary guest, somebody employed, or somebody who's a member of the resident, but it can't be rented to anybody.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So with the deed restriction, I mean, I think anytime you're limiting the use of a property, and that's what the city intends, it should be in a deed restriction so that the person who buys it, right, they're put on notice that that's how it is. Otherwise, it always just gets lost in the shuffle.
My apologies that it wasn't done that way, you know, and it came to my attention late today that we hadn't added it, so I offer it for your consideration.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Yeah. Could we hear from the applicant?
Yes. Good evening, members of the commission, staff. I'm Chris Stanch. I'm the attorney for the applicant, and an attorney, in fact, for the applicant. That is, you know, just want to make sure we are clarified on what E means, and that is that person who occupies the main residence has to be the one that uses the guest house in one of those classes of people. And that's what we're talking about. Because it is a little confusing the way it's written about what it means, and not restricting it to, you know, the property owner, the title owner has to live in the house. I don't think that's, I'm assuming that's not what it means. But with that, we don't have, we accept the proposed resolution, and we're really here to answer questions. I'm here, and the architect Wade Ellison is here also to answer questions you may have concerning the design.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the owner?
I just love the design. I think it's
Yeah,
a
it's
great
beautiful.
design. It's a beautiful house. It's going to be the
It's gonna be
nicest.
nice.
It's going to be the nicest house in the neighborhood.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Big
It was a
upgrade to the area.
collaborative effort between the owners and
Yeah.
the architect and myself, and my wife was involved in that too.
Yeah.
It was fun, actually.
Right, right.
All right, well, thank you. We'll let you know if we have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
We're fine. This is a public hearing, and I have a speaker's card from Mr. Ulrich.
Good evening, Commission and staff. William Ulrich, 487 Gridley Road. I just would like to emphasize, since this question of deed restriction on this property has come up rather late as far as staff, as my understanding is concerned, from a practical matter, I'm here in support of a deed restriction because of the potentiality for that particular property to become a short-term rental, the guest house component of it, especially in the event that the property owner is not in residence in the primary residence. So, having said that, I would reiterate my support, my suggestion that the commission, as a condition of approval, includes a deed restriction on the guest house as against it being used on short-term rentals. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ulrich. Anyone else? This is a public hearing. Anybody else who would like to speak on this matter? I will close the public hearing. Okay, commissioners, do we have further debate, or would someone like to propose a motion?
I have a question, and forgive me, maybe I'm a little late for asking Mr. Ellison. And also forgive my potential butchery of architectural terms. But I see on these, on the Spanish tiles here, or for, are these just gonna be open? Do you know, like, are they gonna be mortared? Is the ends gonna be mortared, or are they just gonna be open?
Yeah, that's correct. They'll be mortared.
Okay. And then I have another question on the windows. Have you spec'd the windows yet?
We have not.
Okay. And have you,
I'm envisioning aluminum clad.
okay, not like vinyl or,
No, not vinyl.
okay. extent of my, oh, and then, I'm sorry. When I was out at the site, I saw there's a nice, I think it's a maple tree. Is it a maple tree? Is that going to be saved, or is that,
I think it's a maple, but
do you know, or
I don't know what it is.
it seemed like it survived the fire, but I don't know if it, yeah, that's going to be gone, right?
Okay.
Is it towards the rear of the lot?
No, it's right up front.
I'm looking at Mr. Bostrom's landscape plan, and I don't see it there. It's indeed on our
I don't think
property,
it's a
huh?
sycamore. I don't,
It's situated where in very close proximity to the driveway coming in, is right actually on the edge of the driveway. And so the landscape plan, placing trees over, as I understand, Mr. Bostrom, but that tree is actually in the way. And we have to, so, and especially we moved it that side to accommodate the matter of it eventually becoming a corner lot.
okay, thanks.
All right. Oh, Mr. Stanch, you want to?
Just on the matter of the deed restriction, I just urge caution on making it too restrictive in the sense of actually not allowing a proper guest house use. And so the people are allowed to have, if it is allowed under the design review and the CUP, then the restriction should be just to make note that is in fact a guest house under the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Change. Further debate, or would someone like to propose a motion?
Do we want to make an attempt at the language on that deed restriction?
Somebody better-
I think I see it being pretty straightforward. You know, it's number 4 of the condition, and it's just adding to it a legal, that'd be legally recorded deed
You
restriction.
want to make a motion then, Steve?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and forge a motion here. I make a motion to approve design review permit DRP 14-12 and conditional use permit CUP 14-05 for a new 2-story single-family residence and guest house as described and discussed, with the added amendment to condition number 4, that the guest house shall not, as stated, the guest house shall not contain kitchen facilities per the section. Definition of a guest house shall be occupied for the sole use of its members of the residential family, temporary guests, or persons permanently employed on the premises, and that this shall be a legally recorded deed restriction.
I second it.
All right. Any further debate? Could we have a roll call?
Lajowski.
Aye.
Jagiello.
Yes.
Isabella.
Yes.
Foster. Yes. Merck.
Yes.
Nicklin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. You guys should be all set.
All right, thank you.
Thank you again for doing such a nice design. It looks just beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item 4. Which is the design review permit, DRP 1105 RV02, modification to the Wild Tennis Academy Phase 1 and Phase 2, including a request to add a new 1,250 square foot commons building to the west wing of the existing building at 428 Bryant Circle. Assessor's parcel number 023019060. The general plan land use designation of the site is public, quasi-public. The zoning classification of the site is public, quasi-public. A mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the original project pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. The nature of the proposed design changes do not require an amended CEQA document. And could we hear from staff on this, please?
Yes, thank you. Okay. I think that this project is somewhat similar to the first one we had tonight, and it is a project that also has had a previous approval, and this is a revision to that approval. So I'm going to try to work through it, and the applicant and their architect are here tonight to also help us. They have brought in, not included in your packet, but tonight there is in front of you on the easel color renderings of the new facades that are proposed. So going forward, we have a project site which is approximately 2.77 acre, which fronts on Bryant Circle and Pope Lane, as well as right-of-way for the planned Fulton Street expansion south to Bryant Circle. Existing development on the project site includes an approximately 13,000 square foot, 2-story dormitory building and associated office space for the tennis academy. In September of 2014, the applicant submitted a request for revision to the Planning Commission approval of the revised design review permit. Note that that's revised. So they had an original approval and then a revised approval, and now we are revising it again. The description and summary of the request is provided below. This current modification request would further revise the original approved project by adding a new 1,250 square foot interior space known as the quote Commons building on the west wing of the existing building. This new addition would replace the approved proposal, which granted approval for a covered entry that was planned to be completed with phase 2 of the development. The proposed new interior space would trigger the elimination and the need for the approved field house. The proposed common building would accommodate informal student gatherings, dinners, open houses, graduations, and provide an entrance to the building. Along with the proposed modifications to phase 2 of the development, the applicant is requesting to eliminate the approved expansion of the lobby, including exterior design elements. And I think you can see there right up above, you know, you've got one elevation and on top and on the TV you have the other, and you can see I'm talking about that porch out in front. The proposed exterior lobby renovations proposes exterior paint to match phase 1, installation of a roof, repainting of the existing stucco. The arch and rounded pop-out area of the interior courtyard north side of the lobby will be removed. So with that, we want to note that the current proposed modifications do not affect any other planned or approved phase 2 items, including renovations to the building, installation of a new roof, enclosing open walls near the lobby, smooth plaster, and repainting the existing west wing to match the exterior renovations to the north wing. And lastly, the proposed modification to phase 2 will maintain the location of the previously approved trash enclosure and parking lot improvements, along with the improved landscape and hardscape improvements around the building. And the applicant has provided a letter to you to kind of detail why, the motivation behind all these changes, and we hope that you've read that. And if not, the applicant is here to answer any questions on that. And with that, in the staff report, we kind of provide the nuts and bolts as far as, you know, what was proposed on the first floor and second floor and the revisions, and the usual customary findings and design requirements for making sure that the project as it's proposed in its new form now is consistent both with the general plan and the zoning. And with that, we would just like to point out that I think the one issue on this particular revision is and you can see between the two elevations, is whether or not it is appropriate to remove the craftsman's-like features that were originally approved. I guess that would be with the first revision. I know this project's been around for a really long time. So I think that's really comes down to the issue with this project. And staff would also like to know that we've had one of the neighbors come in and talk to us about the issues with just the location of the site plan of the proposed, I guess in phase 3, the tennis courts and their close proximity to the residential units in the back, in particular the one tennis court that's proposed for tournaments with the stadium seating and the tallest lights that are there. And staff would just like to note that, you know, in between the time when this was originally approved and the subsequent revision and now this revision, the city of Ojai has adopted a dark sky ordinance, and whether or not those lights were compliant with the dark sky, well, they're not. I mean, I checked in the after we received concerns about this in the file, they were just downward directed and shielded, which was the requirement at the time this was previously approved. So I'm sure that the neighbors are here tonight and they probably would want to talk about this, but staff would just ask that you consider whether or not, you know, to add conditions to bring that lighting compliant with the city's now newly adopted dark sky ordinance. And let me just say that it is, while there are some requirements for that, but because it's a recreational facility, they're rather liberal. You know, it's not super restrictive because of the nature of what's there. And with that, we just provide with you, in your packet, we have we attempted to give you what was previously approved and what they're asking for approval. And then we have also worked with the architect, and he's here and can walk you through that if you have questions about exactly going from point A to point B with what the revisions are. And with that, I'm open to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Kathleen. Do we have questions for staff? Anybody? Okay, could we hear from the applicant, please?
Hi, my name is Mark Weil of Ojai. I just want to correct something too, Kathleen. We are actually the owners, the Ojai Valley Athletic Club. We're the proud owners of the property. So the Ojai Valley Athletic Club does not own any part of the property that we're remodeling. Again, we really like this design that we brought in, how many years ago now, and thought that we could afford to do this. And then once we got into the engineering part of it, we discovered with all the shear wall that we had to replace and basically build from the ground up, as well as, what are the footings, that the cost was going to be twice as much as we could afford. And in also, not only just the cost, but we really couldn't make that design really what we wanted. We wanted an sort of an all school gathering place, and because of the way that is configured on the inside, we couldn't make it happen with all the catwalks and the different walls and so forth, the space, the stairwell. So we went back and thought, we went back to the drawing board basically, and I think came up with a great idea. Let me go back to the field house. We also had the field house. It's off site. Yeah, it's not on there, I don't think. It was going to be next to the tennis courts. And that became sort of a very expensive, not as functional use as we would have liked to have been. It couldn't be the all-academy gathering spot either. It was a little bit too small for that. It was away from the rest of the dorm and school. So we thought, let's put these two things together, these two elements together, and put attach the all commons area to the end of the west wing with a patio, outdoor, indoor, outdoor, and it solved all of our problems in one. We get to eliminate the field house, saving over $400,000. We get to really, really tone down our remodel of the lobby, which will save us, I'm guessing, about $500,000, and allow us to build this common area, have what we want, design it the way we want, and also use the money we save to begin construction on our tennis courts, which we so desperately need now that we've grown. So we need the extra court space. So it did come down to finances. We've exhausted all of our financing, and we have to have a solution now that we can afford to do. So though, again, we'd love to have a fireplace, we can't afford it. We'd love to have the patio, we can't afford the basic from the ground up construction that we would have to do in that area, that lobby area, to make it work. So we simplified it on the lobby area, and we created a space that we really can use, really will give us what we want, and what we can afford as well. So I hope you all like it. I hope it's...
That's a different thing. Yeah.
So, yep, that would be the front of it, attached to the building. And this is the side view here. Kind of the indoor, outdoor, where we would have a patio here, open the doors, and again, we're hoping to hold graduation here, family barbecues, kind of an open, kind of a commons area for the kids and parents.
I would like to point out that actually, I don't think we're taking away the craftsman look you were talking about.
Can you come up to the microphone so we can have it on the public record? Sorry. Can you give us your name and address?
We're actually continuing the craftsman's...
Could you say your name?
Oh, sorry,
and-
Jane Weil.
Oh, hi, Jane. Sorry.
The phase one actually completed the addition on the north end of the building, and that has the craftsman, the shingles, and we have the stucco along the bottom, which Steve had asked for at the last design to sort of tie the old part of the building to the new part of the building. And the new proposed commons has that same look, the shingles and the supports on the front porch with the same rock on the pillars. So, and I'm sure Larry will go through that with you, but I just wanted to point out that we're not losing that. We're actually matching what's on the other end, on that end, rather than in the middle.
Okay, thank you, Jane. We didn't have any, do we have questions? The architect, I don't know. I wanted to make sure you were okay with the lighting standards we're going to have for the courts.
No.
No?
I don't know really what it means.
I don't know exactly either, because we just enacted this dark sky ordinance recently, and I think you'd be the first tennis court kind of installation where we would do that.
They would match up with the timing that on the, like the rec center and the club, they have a time, like
Yeah.
it's 10 o'clock at night, they have to be off, so
Yeah,
absolutely.
We can't play at midnight? Don't worry. We wouldn't anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I think
that'd be fine.
it's just a matter of the kind of fixtures that we have so that there's no spillover of the light onto other properties and so.
Again, our courts would be right next to the pools and the other courts that exist already, so I'm sure we're going to be fine with whatever we have to do.
Okay, sounds good.
So, any
Other
questions
for the applicant?
so far?
I have a, I have a question about the architecture. So what you're saying is the front entry is going to be modified to the different look that you presented here, but the Craftsman look that was originally intended is going to be maintained on the rear community center that you're building. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll let Larry
I'm
talk
not clear
about
by
this.
the drawing. If somebody could point out to me where the front
Let's
entry
bring Larry
is.
up here. Larry, can you introduce yourself there? And
My name is Larry Graves, architect with Alliance Design Group, helping the Wilds out with this project. I'm going to say a few things, and I'm going to definitely address your question and comment. In the packet that you received, you will notice two sets of drawings. A1 through A4 is in the title block Alliance Design Group. Those are my drawings. And those represent the proposed construction. And just quickly, the proposed construction on Phase 2 is a commons addition on the west end of the building, a remodel of the north end of the lobby on the interior courtyard, and that's in the lobby area, construct a new trash enclosure, and exterior upgrade of the rest of the building, which I'll explain here in a minute. Then drawings A2 through A11 have a title block of Patrick Nolan, and I've included those because they're reference drawings of what was submitted and reviewed earlier, or a few years back, with design drawings, floor plans, etc. So I just want to clarify those two sets of drawings. One is Alliance Design Group, 1 through 4, and the other one is Patrick Nolan, A2 through A11. And in the A1 through A4 drawings, the Alliance Design Group, there's some heavy bold lines that you'll see on the plans. Those represent the areas that we're going to be basically changing from the original or the other design. I wanted to clearly delineate that. And again, it's the commons area and the north end of the lobby in the interior courtyard. At this time, I would like to point out 3 areas that were removed from the previous design, and those occur on A11. And the first one is the covered porch and barbecue area and outdoor fireplace on the parking lot side, or it would be the southeast side of the building. So, and it does occur on a slide here. If we go through the slides, please. Okay, stop there, please. Oops. Right in the center of that slide, you'll see the trellised porch area with the large brick chimney, fireplace, and barbecue area. That area is proposed to be eliminated. And as Mark indicated, that's a cost issue, and it's also a use issue. The use was to have in that center area a kind of a commons area for the students. And then this was going to be kind of an indoor-outdoor area so they could gather and so forth. With the redirection of the design and the use of the facility to a commons area on the west wing, and then also because of budget, this area is being eliminated. The second one is at the opposite end of the north part of the lobby. And if we could go through some slides. Okay, stop there, please. This element right here. Under the original design, that was to be an entry to the back courtyard area, and it was also to serve this proposed commons area, which does not exist because we've changed the location of it. It was a covered porch and a gable roof element on that courtyard area. That also is being eliminated for two reasons: lack of use, we don't need it anymore, and also budget. And then the third area that is being eliminated from the original design, again on Patrick Nolan's drawings, there was a covered patio porch area on the very west end of the building. And go back, please. That element, again, is being eliminated. Budget number one, and also use. We have chosen to locate the new commons addition at that end of the building, and so we don't need a covered porch and that particular use right there. So those are the three changes from the original design that I wanted to point out to the commissioners. The colors of the building are going to remain the same. Back a few years ago, the commission approved the north wing of this building. It's a two-story dormitory and dorm parents addition. And on the left side of that photograph, you can see the end elevation of the two-story dorm parents addition. All of that has been constructed and in place and per the approved color boards and colors of the project. So the rest of the building that we're going to continue on with is going to keep the same color scheme, and there is a color board that has been submitted. If anybody's interested, it can be passed around. But it does have the colors of the building that was approved and constructed and completed. And I'd like at this time to address your question.
Can you point out to me the front entry, or I call it the front entry, on your elevation? Show me what that looks like. And the other question is, why wouldn't you do a perspective drawing of the entry? Since there's so many changes, it's really difficult to visualize this cut-up drawing and to see exactly what you're doing. It's very, very difficult.
If you'll refer to drawing A11, that drawing also is very cut up. And
Yes,
it's rather challenging,
It's challenging to see.
to say the least, because of all the angles. And if you look at one view straight on, that means two other views are going to be abbreviated. And so it makes it kind of challenging. So in our world in architecture, we use what's called cut lines, and we cut the building, and then we shift so we see another part of the building straight on. So we attempt to give you that straight on view rather than the angular abbreviated view. The entry will be right here. Now that is off of the main parking lot. The parking lot has not changed any, and the existing building main entry has not changed. Under the previous approved design, that entry was that covered porch area with the chimney and the outdoor fireplace and the barbecue. So the location of that entry has not changed. It's still in the same location. It just does not have a covered porch over it. But it is directly related to the main parking area where visitors will come and park and service the building.
Is that on A11, you said? No. Which one is that?
Yeah, the original
The drawing that you have on the easel is A4. And I know it's challenging because we've got so many drawings and.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I think we're all kind of struggling here with is, you know, we have a building that right now lacks cohesion. And I hear the applicants say that, you know, there's going to be a craftsman theme carried through, but we, you know, this is the first time we're seeing this, and it's really hard for us to hear that there's all this stuff being taken away, and we can't really visualize what it's going to look like. You know, we're trying to say, okay, this is out, this is in, and that's difficult. You know, seeing this is the first time we're seeing this, and I'm not sure what you were saying, Jane, about how we're going to be able to, you know, make this a cohesive, how you're going to be able to make it a cohesive look.
I think what I'm going to point out is.
Jane, could we have you be at the microphone? It's just, maybe you could bring that drawing with, yeah, sure. Yeah. It just needs to be on the record there.
So the proposed addition that we're looking at is this piece right here. So this is the view from the west end of the building, which is where you see the people in that picture. So instead of those 4 pillars, you're going to see this. And we've moved the pillars to the front, which is right here. So this is the front. This is the side, so you'll see the little area for, you know, when you're entering the door, you don't get wet. And then this piece here is exactly there, except there we had added a balcony. Where the people are, straight up above. So because we added on this room, we had to take away the balcony, and we had to take away the 4 pillars. Otherwise, that part of the building exists. Those windows exist right now, and all we're doing is taking off the 4 pillars and the balcony, and we're adding this room. So this would be the view where those people are standing on the very far right, and this would be the front view of that addition. All this actually already exists. It's just the wrong color right now. We want to smooth out the stucco. Make the colors match the left side of that building, which has already been completed. That was phase 1. Then the other thing that Larry was pointing out was because we're adding that new piece, we don't need the new piece in the middle. But right now, if you've been by that building, there's like a looks like a Star Trek piece or something. It landed out of, I don't know where, 1970. So we are going to remove that because it just doesn't fit. There's no way to leave it there and try to make it match the Craftsman look. So that piece is right here. So that, what you see there is that entrance. We've removed the entrance that was proposed, but we also removed that bubble, that pop-out thing that just doesn't fit. So by removing it, we just have to enclose the wall. And then the back side, which we have been looking at the previous slide, this is actually what exists right now, except it has a round roof. So we straightened the roof so that it would match.
Oh, good. So the
Everything
round
else.
roofs are off.
The round roofs are gone.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
wanted.
So this we tried to make look exactly like that without the fireplace
See.
and without the, it's not actually coming out. I think we added about 400 square feet of space on that wall, which we are not going to do. We're just going to take away the bubbles or the roundness, make it smooth the way the rest of the building is, and add the square footage on the end. Got a little clearer? Sorry about that. It is very confusing because the building is north-south, east-west.
Right. It would have been nice to just do a perspective, and it would have answered all those questions instantly, but
Okay,
anyway, we got it.
sorry. Yeah, that was actually another design firm that I had used in the past. So, we started with David Barry, and then he passed away, and so we've kind of been with a few different firms, but Barry's been great to work with. Thank you.
Point something out. And to address the previously approved drawings, at the front entry, which is right here, this roof element and this element up here is exactly to the T, identical to the approved design on A11 that was previously approved. This is identical. The only difference is there are no shingles on this wall surface. It's shown and proposed as plaster. Otherwise, everything is identical to what was approved. This element right here is identical to what was approved on the previous drawings, and it mirrors the wing on the other side. Everything is a mirror. Everything matches identically. And to clarify a comment, all the round roof wall elements that you see currently, especially at the front entry, are 100% going to be gone, and there will be a cohesive building from both sides of this boomerang, if you will, shaped building. And also I want to point out another thing about the Craftsman. We have this current two-story dorm parent addition that's been approved and built. We're talking about a new one-story commons building addition right here. Think of it as bookends. Both ends of this building are going to be of the Craftsman style, the wood shingles, the roof, the elements, the covered porch, the rock columns, identical. It'll be a bookend to books in the middle, and in the middle, it'll be one cohesive color, design, window treatments, roof, and everything.
I have a question about the lighting, since staff mentioned that we've had, I know this was part of your prior approval, but now since the whole project is up for review, how did the lights, what determined that the lights would be 35 feet high?
You're talking about on the tennis courts?
On the tennis courts, yeah.
I think that's a standard. I know that the recreational facilities are, I think, exempt from the dark sky requirements, but you would know more about the tennis courts and the lighting. I mean, we just, consulted with a builder, tennis court builders, and that's what they recommended and drew on their
You don't have any studies or volumetric studies or anything about the way the light is falling and what the minimum is needed for recreational? Is that something that's a standard?
You know, to play tennis at night, if the lights are too low, they're not going to light enough of the court. So that could be good for some people, but not good for your opponent. So the lights have to be a certain height in order to light the court properly. And I believe it is standard, but I don't have that information here with me now.
Is there some kind of shielding on them, like on the backside? You know, there's this with the neighbor issue and the spillage.
I believe there is, but again, because the lights want to be, they don't want to light up behind them. They're facing the court, so they're only really supposed to light the court itself. I don't know exactly if there's a shield, but I'm sure we could design something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are lights that Ojai Valley School put in years ago, probably 15 years ago, that are, I'm not sure if they're dark sky compliant, but they do a great job of lighting just the surface of the court, and you don't see anything else around them.
It'll be just like Libby Park. I mean,
yeah, same
it can
kind
be,
of
if not exactly the same, very similar to what's at Libby now.
And also to clarify, the tennis courts are in phase 3.
So we're not looking at the tennis courts tonight, or is that?
It's in the master plan.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? Rosalie, you're set. Okay. All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. I have a number of speakers cards, so I'd like to hear from the public on this. The first one is from Linda Epstein Clark. Oh, I have a card from you as well, so you can speak twice.
Well, maybe. My name is Joe Clark. I live at 520 Buckboard. I have the unique lot in Ojai, which sits between Bryant Street and Persimmon Hill. And so the issues I want to talk tonight about are, first, I received, the first notice I received came the week of November 24th about this project. The second issue I have is the exclusion of the most restrictive planning zone, which is the R04 in the initial study of this project, in the initial project documents, and the documents dated November 20th, 2014. I also have issues with the proximity of the View Tournament Court, which has a 35-foot light tower, and the rest of the courts have a 22-foot light tower. I also have, so I have a bigger issue with the overall lighting of this court and how it even was arrived at without consulting the residents behind it. Right behind me is the Ojai Valley Racquet Club clay courts, and they are not lit. There are multiple planners who have contributed to this project, and what I can see from that is that they've carried their inaccuracies forward. It will devaluate my property, and it will leave me with a loss of enjoyment of my home. I'm not sure why I only received the one notice, but that's what I received. Had I known earlier, I would be here, and I've been here before on other issues. The issue of the not recognizing the R04 residential, I'm not sure how that was missed. It's nowhere on any of the documents. It's not even on the latest documents. If you look to the south, there is no, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot the most important document for this. You can follow along. I get nervous in front of people, so I'm trying to go as fast as I can. I only got a minute 14.
Don't worry about it.
So it's never really been addressed that we were there. In fact, even in the initial study, there's just a mere mention of us. So the second issue that I have is the proximity of the View Tennis Court, or the what they're calling the Tournament Court. This is located at the far end of where the property they're developing, and they're putting it right next to the Ojai Valley Racquet Clubs in the most prominent spot. Those towers will sit 35 feet at the highest part of that elevation. And you cannot tell me that that light is not going to fall over onto me. A 35-foot tower is taller than 3 stories. So to me, it's quite a bit of light. It's throwing off light, and unless there's some serious excavating, I'm not sure how you remedy that. Instead of sort of mitigating this and placing the building at the end, placing this court closer to their building to put it at a lower area and light down there, it was placed at the most prominent part. The issue with the lighting is addressed in some quotes that I found in the initial study, which first, it describes us as that their perception of the increased lighting of the site would be relatively minor. I don't know how that would be relatively minor, a 35-foot light structure. And if you drive by Livy Park, there is light thrown off. So that I would have an issue with that. Later on, they do talk about that impacts associated with the tennis court lighting to the night sky visibility and a relatively low light character of part of Ojai are potentially significant and mitigation is needed. The mitigation which was offered was to turn them off at 10 o'clock. If I stand in my backyard now and I look at the night sky, there's a dim sort of light over at Bryan Circle. However, it is not, will never be what the intensity of this light will be. Let me see, where am I at? I get the, so for me, it's a major impact is the 35-foot lighting structures, along with 3 others that are 22 feet throwing off light. There was no scientific or technical review of this lighting, which is before you. There's no photometric telling me how much light is going to be thrown off, where it's going to be thrown off. The skateboard park seems to be able to do the photometric, showing you where the light is and how it's going to be done, and I would expect the same in this particular case. The initial study planner did not take into consideration the R4, and that was carried forward. No one has come to even look and look to see what is beyond the other fence, and there are residents there. So yes, there are trees, but there are residents, and this will affect our night sky. I have an issue with the multiple planners, in that the projects, as I started to go through the documentation, there are multiple planners. And as I said, you're carrying your issues through. No one's checking these issues, no one's going out to see what's there, they're just carrying it forward. So I have a lot of questions. I have a question, why is the court with the highest towers, which will be a view stadium, which will have the most people at, which will create the most noise, why is that the closest to the residential? Why was it never taken into effect that there are people that live there? So, I mean, it really was quite a shock to me. So my concerns, again, they're really the lighting, they're the traffic. I know I'm coming down to time here. The zoning recognition, the general plan recognition, adequate buffering. There's no adequate buffering. The night sky, it's not resolved as far as I can see. And everything that you approve is future moves us towards the future. So it can get worse, or it can get better. I don't know. It's just that you're making a decision on something which is, I'm not sure Weil Academy could grow and things, you could put more courts in. So for me, I'm just having an issue with it, and the loss of enjoyment of my property is, that's not replaceable. So for me, what I'm looking at is that if there is a possible remedy, I would like to see the lighting part of this sent back to the planner. I'd like it re-reviewed. I would like studies done. I do not think that the project, as far as the dormitory, if that is acceptable by the Planning Commission, that should move forward. This should not hold up what they want to build. What I'm concerned about is the lighting, the location of the view tournament tennis court, and how that affects my life. And for me, what I would recommend even further is that you move the 35-foot lights and the view tennis court closest to their building. And you put one of the 22 feet courts next to the Ojai Valley Racket Clubs at the far end. And this is, there's a condition of approval on that you can use the lights on that 4th court when there's a tournament in town or when they sponsor a tournament, and then weeks before when they need training for those tournaments. Otherwise, that's a day court only, and that's the buffer between the tennis courts and the residents. And my other concern is that if you approve lights, then the next thing I will be in here with the Ojai Valley Racket Club wanting to put lights on their clay courts. So that's where I'm at, and I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Appreciate it. Let's see. I have a card here from Robert Meyer.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Robert Meyer. I'm at 550 Buckboard, so I'm right next door. Also, I'd like to reiterate, first I'm here to comment on the project for the Academy, but my input's going to be general in nature. I really don't have any issues with the proposed changes that you've gone through this evening. My issues are really with the prior approval projects. The first notice I got, also like Mr. Clark, was for the proposed changes. I don't recall getting a notice of the original project design. So what I'd like to do is share a couple concerns with you, similar to Mr. Clark. First of all is the non-notification, received a notification. I would have certainly looked at the lighting. That is clearly also my concern. My backyard faces Bryant Circle and these courts and the mountains, which I enjoy greatly. If the lights are on at night and there's a great deal of spillover, that's going to really destroy that. The other concern I have is, like Mr. Clark, the court with the tallest light poles, the 35-foot light poles, are on the highest part of the property. So if you've looked at that property out there where the tennis courts are, the dormitories are down here, and then the hill kind of goes up to there. And they want to put the big court with the big lights at the highest part of the property. That doesn't seem to be very wise to me with the lighting initiative that Ojai has currently. I would also, if I had the opportunity, request that if they are going to have night lights on, that they're not relied to be turned off by human beings, that there's a hardwired timer that turns the lights off at 10 o'clock so that we don't get into this, oh, we're only got another 5 minutes to go and we can play some more type of thing. If the ordinance says 10 o'clock, the lights go off at 10 o'clock. The other area of concern I have is regarding the overall project review. I did a very quick look, I'll admit that. But I did find a couple of things that I found that appeared to be errors or omissions that I would like to have addressed. And they are indicative to me of some, maybe it's because of the multiple planners, I don't know. But it appears to me that there might be some misses going on. First one in a portion of the Land Use Policy 10, which is quoted in Attachment F, page 9 of 16, was clearly not implemented. The requirement is that it says, quote unquote, require that adequate buffering and transitions be provided between dissimilar uses. So I'm in an R04 area. That's a very dissimilar use than what the property is there, and there is no buffering that's intended. They did talk about it in the original plan, trees, et cetera, but believe me, 35-foot towers, there's nothing that's higher than that. The second thing, which was kind of a small thing, but it, again, is indicative, is the project location, which is shown on Attachment D, proposed modifications, page 1 of 5, is clearly incorrect. So, I mean, I pick up a couple errors like that and I go, well, what else is in there if I were part of the either staff or your planning commission? So maybe there needs to be some closer looks.
Wait, could you clarify that 1 of 5 on attachment D?
It was the project location, it's attachment D, proposed modifications, page 1 of 5. Yeah, that's not the project location. I mean, we're off by a couple hundred feet. And so I said, what else is in there that might not be correct? That's the only thing I'm pointing out. My intent here is really not to force another whole review of the project. And I understand due process, and maybe I didn't get the notice and et cetera, or I saw it and threw it away, whatever. But it does point out to me that the whole permitting process seems to be in need of some review. And you well know there's been a couple projects here that have caused a lot more controversy than this one has recently. And I'm not going to describe what those are, you know them well. But it does seem to me that between staff and the Planning Commission that you need to take a hard look at your whole work process and say, what's gone wrong here? What can we do better? Because I think there needs to be some improvement here, because you end up with some unnecessary conflict and some upset neighbors and residents of the city. So I thank you for your time and consideration. So good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. And I also have a card from Mr. Ulrich.
William Ulrich, 487 Gridley Road. Couple of comments relative to this application. In addition to what appears to have been insufficient notice to adjacent property owners, the notice to the public for this entire matter does not reference the CUP, which is controlling over it. Ostensibly, I would ask whether each of you have reviewed that CUP to see whether this proposal, this modification to this development is consistent with that CUP. Because lacking the CUP number, which I believe was 2001, one would look at the PL zoning and say that none of this development was permissible. However, there was an exception made that established the permissibility of this development, and that is inherent in the CUP. If you haven't read it, then you shouldn't be making any decisions based on it. And since it wasn't referenced in the agenda item, I would submit that it also lacks notice to the public, as well as adequate transparency. And this is a common issue with the city, with planning, with staff, and even with the city council. And that's not acceptable. So, I would submit that it would be appropriate that this item was re-agendized for a later meeting with the proper information in the agenda to notice the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ulrich. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this matter? Come right up.
Hi, I'm Linda Epstein. I live at 520 Buckboard, and I was able to go back today and go back to 2011, which was the beginning of this project. And in those documents you have those documents. And at no point does it reference, even at that time, any RO4 zone. It's all multi-use, quasi-public, light manufacturing. And yet, if you walk out our back door, our property extends into half of Pope Lane. So whoever went out and had a look or gave you the designations, you're relying on information that is not accurate. And we've come forward before due to the building that went up, a two-story building that went up at 420 Bryant. And of course, we objected to the height of it because it was very inconsistent with all the other buildings. And when Persimmon Hill and Bryant Circle were developed, nobody ever created a proper distance or transition zone. It went straight into multi-industrial or light industrial use. And it was built in the 80s, and even though we've had issues, still nobody comes forward and says, you know what, at some point, we need to correct this, or we need to do something because it puts an enormous, what's going on is going to impact the value of our home. And going out into the night sky and enjoying the 3.5 acres that we bought to do just that should not be used as a buffer for somebody else's project because we've had to plant trees to keep some sort of easement or buffering or zone in order to be comfortable in our home. And I think that was a planning issue that unfortunately has never been addressed. And I think it should be addressed by the planning department rather than being able to cut lots and change and move lots out. It seems to me we're close enough already and that we need more distance because there was for us to be a RO4 and not have been recognized by any one of us and we all live here is kind of is very upsetting. I mean, that's where we live. That's where we're raising our children, and we never intended to live in a business park or in a multi-quasi space. We intended to be able to use our land in its entirety and not to create a buffer for other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Epstein. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak on this matter? And Sherry, I understand we're having a problem with the microphone. Is it that you can't hear people, or you're okay now? All right. I guess we solved that technical problem. No one else would like to speak on this matter? I'm going to close the public hearing. So, debate? Questions? I'm kind of wondering if we need to split this into two pieces here and maybe take the tennis court issue separate from the building issue, but I'm open to suggestions.
As it's been noted, a lot of this project has a long history. Since I'm relatively new, I'm going to really look to some more senior members to kind of help guide us through this one.
I think there have been a lot of valid points have been brought up tonight. The lighting issues, although it's phase 3, but it's still, the point about the original CUP, looking at that. I think I would like to actually look at more of the stuff in depth more and study it a little bit more than making a decision tonight. That's my point of view.
I agree. I think we need more information. It's been a long time, and we have newer commissioners here that weren't part of the original approvals, and there's some good questions that have been brought up by the public, and that Lawrence just mentioned. I would like to know about the notification process. I know that typically a notification goes out within a 300-foot radius, and I would think that that property certainly would qualify for that. We need to follow through on that, and so I would recommend that we take tonight's subject or item and kind of look at it and divide it into two parts and look at this lighting thing as a separate issue, and have them come back for future discussion and at least continue that. I'm looking to staff to see how we might go about that.
Okay, so I can offer a little bit of information just to answer a few questions if I can.
Yeah.
All right, so in regards to the CUP, the information that was provided in your packet was the original staff report, I believe, of 2011, and it clearly, I just had it here, talks on page 10 of 16. If you want to turn to that, it says why they needed a CUP, which was in particular, specifically, I should say, to allow the dormitory use. Okay, I heard nothing.
Are we on attachment A?
We're going to talk attachment F.
Attachment F.
10 of 16, second paragraph, it says that the municipal code does not explicitly allow dormitory uses in the PL as either a permitted or conditionally permitted use. However, they can be permitted with a CUP. I heard nothing tonight that says that anyone is proposing a change to the dormitory use. Ergo, it wasn't open for discussion. I mean, if they were coming in saying, we're no longer going to be using these as dormitories, or, I mean, they're still continuing, they just explained to you that they just completed some of the adult or parent, I think they call them dormitories. So the CUP is not open. They're not asking to modify it. They're not asking to add to it or do anything. The only revisions, as they've explained tonight, that they're doing are for the building structure only, okay? Now, you've had citizens come tonight and ask that you look at other elements besides the architecture because they have opened up the design review permit. But the CUP was specifically for use only, and it was for the dormitory use, and that is provided in your packet. So we can make that more clear, but it was in some of the reading materials you had in here. I did personally check the file, which is rather thick. This is a long, involved, multi-year, multi-revision project. And there are multiple lists. We make a copy of, every time we deal with, the applicants are required to bring in a 300-foot list with mailing labels. We make a copy of those before we take them off and use them on envelopes. And in that archived list, both these property owners' names are there. Now, we don't send out, when we're not required to by law, registered mail. That would be cost prohibitive for the city. You know, there's a number of addresses when you do 300 feet. It is law that putting those mailings into the U.S. Post is considered that you're served. We also, as required by law, post at City Hall and put a notice in the paper. And so there's more than one avenue for a citizen to get noticed. Because this in other jurisdictions where I've worked, they also post the property, and that is always, in my opinion, served to kind of, really highlight when somebody's doing something. And so we're also considering that. I mean, and you're not required to do all of the methods. You're required, I think, to do 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 4. And we are meeting the legal requirements, but as always, we're always looking to do more outreach with it. So I did talk also to the city attorney about, well, what happens when someone says, they didn't get notice, and if we looked at our list and they weren't on our list, we would have an issue, but this wasn't the case, both these properties. It goes by the APN, and the property is noticed that way. So it's computer generated. So that's the issue with the noticing. And as far as providing more information on what was done on the lighting, I think there could be more information provided to you. I think that I looked up the initial study and I gave it to the neighbors that came in, and it's very clear that there were some assumptions made in that initial study, and it might be good that you continue this, and staff provide that initial study for you. You can see. This was done in 2011. That's not that long ago, but I did not find in the file any photometric that actually demonstrated in a clear scientific way, or what is the industry standard, the spill off from this lighting. I will point out that in the next item we have, the skate park lighting, they are not using the lighting. The lights do not come on unless someone's using the skate park. And that consideration was not placed on this project. In other words, they can have those lights on until 10 o'clock at night, even if no one is using the courts. And so if you choose tonight to continue the item, I would suggest that you be very clear about what you want staff to come back with, and we can provide the environmental initial study and what was said regarding the lights and the placement of the lights and noise. I wasn't able to find any kind of elevation of the tennis courts either, and no elevations of the light standards, as you find in your packet tonight for the skate park. So I wasn't really able to provide the neighbors with, when you have 35-foot light standards, what does that really mean for someone behind? I mean, there just isn't any information there to provide them with an accurate picture of what this means for them, and so it kind of leaves them in this area of being kind of at a loss for what the impacts would be to their property.
Thank you, Kathleen. So I'm unclear about, can we approve the building part of this tonight, and are the tennis courts even involved in what we're looking at tonight? Because
Well, that's up to you. That's at the discretion of the planning commission. I mean, they have a permit, and they chose to open the permit back up and make modifications. And by doing so, they subject themselves to whether or not there's new rules and regulations that you want, or conditions you want to apply to them. I mean, you know, it's not at their discretion, it's at your discretion. And if you're just saying, well, they're making minor changes to the building and you don't really want to open everything back up, then that's at your discretion. But certainly you have neighbors here tonight that are saying that they would have been here if they got notice. We don't know. I wasn't here. I don't know what happened, why they weren't noticed, or why they didn't receive notice. I mean, obviously, we know that people aren't too bashful about coming out if they think it's going to be impact their property. So I would assume, take them at their word that they would have been here. But I don't know what to tell you. So I would suggest, at the very least, that you consider putting some additional conditions on the lighting that would give them some sense of, that are just standard now. For instance, I can read for you for the skate park lighting, that outdoor light fixtures used for outdoor recreational facilities shall be fully shielded except when such shielding would cause impairment to the visibility required in the intended recreational activity. In such cases, partially shielded fixtures and directional lighting methods shall be utilized to limit light pollution, glare, and light trespass to a reasonable level as determined by the Community Development Director, without diminishing the performance standards of the intended recreational activity. What that means for them, and I think that that's something that you should let both the applicant and the neighbors work out, is that, you know, obviously, if you can play tennis on 22-foot light standards, you know, why would we allow them to go to 35? Now, the applicants, in the past documentation that exists in the history of this, they're saying the 35 is a tournament standard. So I think there's just a lot of questions about, you know, the City of Ojai standards are, you get to do the lighting to the level it takes to do what you're doing and nothing more, okay? So reading on, it says, illumination from recreational facility light fixtures shall be shielded to minimize light pollution extending toward roadways where impairment of motorist vision might cause a hazard and toward neighboring residential areas. So they would have to demonstrate all this before we would actually let them install the lighting. And finally, those lights which are not required to be shielded, as noted above, shall not be illuminated between 10 p.m. and sunrise, except to complete a specific organized recreational event that is in progress of 10 p.m. So if you're playing a tournament, you get to finish, okay? So I think that at least if they were dark sky, if they were compliant with the regulations we have today for the City of Ojai, they would have a lot of documentations they'd have to provide, similar to what the skate park provided, which is it's a computer-generated light palette or light design that creates the. That's why they have so many multiple light poles in the skate park design, with multiple heads. So I think there's a more sophisticated way to look at lighting today than there was in 2011, and I think that at the very minimum that's what they should be held to, if that's, you know, because it is what the ordinance is now. I don't think it's burdening them with anything other than what the citizens of Ojai have already asked for. And with that, I mean, I think you could go on. I don't see any way that you can really approve the design review permit and then ask them to come back in. I mean, it's kind of, I'm not sure exactly how you would do that.
I see what you're saying. So it's kind of either continue the whole thing or.
But you can make the decision that you don't really want to look at that if, you know, I mean, I'm just trying to provide options and, you know, and like I said, I think that I can provide you more information. There is more information regarding the lighting. When staff wrote this report, we didn't know it was an issue. And I just would want to say that, you know, I did look, I mean, when the neighbors were talking about not acknowledging there's a residence behind you, I want to just make that very clear. What they're saying is, when we provide the information in staff report where we say general plan designation, zoning classification, we say what this parcel is and what's around it, that was never recognized. And I told them when I met with them that I would make sure that you understood that. That's what they're concerned about, is that when we're setting the context of how the project and the neighboring surrounding uses, and that error was picked up from previous reports, because of course the staff person, you know, I didn't write, I mean, my name's on this report, but we had a contract staff person, you know, they picked up it, assuming it was right from the original report, and they're right. That was an error carried forward. So, you know, because they weren't here, no one spoke, and the error was in the front of the page, it didn't really illuminate the fact that there was abutting or adjacent residential that was, I just want to make sure that you understood what she was speaking of when she was saying that.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen.
I would like the applicant to address the lighting issue, if that's
Well,
okay.
that's a good point. Good. Yeah,
Because
Mike, come on up.
we want to be good neighbors, don't worry. And we actually live on Park Road, directly across from Home Plate at Sarzati Park. So we know what major lighting is right in our own home. So I don't want that to happen. And we would like, if it's possible, we would be very open to, if you could, approve so that we can get under construction so we have a shot at graduation in May to have the commons ready. If we could get that part going, but hold on the tennis courts, which we were not going to build right away anyway. And we would like to look at that. And I didn't know that the light towers were listed for 35 feet on that stadium court. And I do want to say it's a very small stadium. The word stadium is not really appropriate. It's a larger court than the other three courts. I don't want to devalue their property. I don't want to ruin their night sky at all. And I'd like to look and see if we can do 22-foot light poles on that court as well. The reason why, sorry, I'm talking fast. The reason why we had to put the larger court at that position next to the clay courts is because the land is longer up there. As you go down the hill, the land gets more narrow, and we can't do a larger court down at the bottom. Or I would be open to doing that, but we can't. We can't fit it down there. That's how we bought the property, and I can't go back to the owners and buy another 8 square feet or something. So we have to build the largest court up at the top, but we can certainly look at having the lights be dimmer. 10 o'clock at night. Again, this tournament thing, we were only going to hold one tournament per year, 1 week per year. This is not going to be every week. And 10 o'clock at night, very rarely are people playing at 10 o'clock at night in my tennis academy. They're usually asleep. So we would love to comply and again, be good neighbors. And I listen to them, and I live here too, and I understand. But if there's any way we could split the design permit approval, that would be great.
Okay, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wan.
How about we propose a condition that just says prior to implementation of phase 3, the applicant shall come back to the planning commission with, a lighting plan, I said I couldn't do it, but then I sat here and listened and it popped into my head. So how about that?
Okay.
Will that work?
Works for me. I don't know.
But then
How do the commissioners feel about that?
Yeah. There was one other concern that was brought up was a buffer zone.
I think that has to do more with the area where the tennis courts are.
Yeah.
Because the building
Well, I agree,
itself is
yeah.
there. They're going to remodel the existing building, and that's all commercial. And in that regards, understanding what they're trying to do now, I understand where they're going with the design, with the physical design of the building. They are maintaining the craftsman look on that attachment to the communal center that they're building. The front entry is a scaled-down model. I have to take them for their word that it's a costly feature. We are getting rid of the round, ugly spaceship look, whatever that is. So the architecture in itself is an improvement on what's there, and I think it's well thought out with the considerations of their budget, and I think they should be able to move forward with that part of their project with a, like Kathleen was saying, do something else on the lighting.
Other commissioners have feelings? You want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure.
And then we can
Okay.
vote on it?
Let's see. Okay, I make a motion for approval of the modification to design review permit DRP 11-05 for the addition of the new 1,250 square foot building located at 428 Bryant Circle, with the condition that Phase 3 of the project, which includes the tennis court location and lighting, be reviewed in another design permit. How would we state that?
Yeah, I guess be reviewed by the planning commission, specifically the tennis courts and
Size, location, and lighting.
Size, location, and lighting. I think that there might be some concerns about noise during tournaments too.
Okay.
You know.
That's where I think a buffer zone is very important, that noise issue.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that adequate? Do I have to restate that?
Well, I guess
Is that your motion?
I think you just need to say, did you say prior to implementation of Phase 3? Is it, okay.
Prior to
Okay, thank
implementation
you.
of Phase 3,
All right.
the applicant needs to submit for a review a new plan that would address the lighting, the location, and the size of the tennis courts.
And the buffering. The buffering.
And the buffer zone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. I'll second that motion. Further discussion?
I'd like to comment on the proposed design.
We haven't even talked about the design.
We really haven't. And I was here when we approved the original, and we went through quite a few hoops to get to that point. It was looked at with close scrutiny on a number of fronts. One was the consideration of that front entry there that faces Pope and Bryant Circle, its exposure to the public realm. And there was a lot of emphasis put on that roof line and the trellis and how that all was incorporated into that design to give it something that, that in essence, architecturally provided focus and was aesthetically pleasing. And I think they did that. What I'm seeing here, well, first of all, let me say the western addition, I think it's great. I agree with the architect that it balances the west side with the east side, and I really liked what you guys did with that first phase of dressing that up. It looks really good. I want to see it continue. What I'm seeing here substantially compromises the architectural design of that approved design, and I'm seeing a lot of planar massing going on. There's a lack of distinction and contrast in the materials, and it just flat out doesn't look as good to me. That's my viewpoint on this, and I think I can transfer that thought back to the opposite side on the, I guess it would be the westerly facade that where they removed the overhangs that were the gabled overhangs that came out the top. There was a centrality, there was a focus, there was a cohesiveness, and that's gone now. So I have really a hard time, difficult accepting this revision here in terms of that aspect of it. Like I say, the western addition, no problem, but something has to occur. As soon as you remove the trellis, the rock work out there, the focus is missing, and albeit it does look better than what is there now. We can all agree on that, but I don't think that's enough. That's where I'm coming from.
All right, other comments?
I agree, the sense of arrival does appear to be severely diminished in this incarnation of the plans.
I'm torn because I think what's there, anything would be an improvement, and this is much improved, but I also understand when you start taking away, this was a beautiful design, and when you start taking stuff away, it's sort of hard for people who have worked really hard to craft something to let it go. That said, I also understand the applicant would like to really move forward, and they've got a deadline, so I'm not sure how we balance that. But I do appreciate that we can separate out the tennis court issue and the lighting issue.
Okay. Lawrence, you want to jump in here? Everybody else has had a comment.
Well, again, I kind of agree with Steve, and you know, it's a hard decision of you know, you wanting to get it go ahead. I do agree that the design's been compromised from the original. We did work on it last year. It was a lot of thought and discussion went into it, and just modifying, you know, getting it totally cohesive, the whole building, and so it is, yeah, it's a difficult decision to make. It's just,
all right.
But
Well, we have, do you want
yeah, you know, but breaking away the phase 3, I think is important. I do agree with that.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded, so I think we need to vote on that and see where we go after that. So could we have a roll call, please?
Lojowski?
Could I have a question of clarification first? If I vote against this
Yeah.
motion on the floor, and if this motion fails, does the whole thing fail, or do we bring it back into discussion?
We could certainly have a further discussion about it.
Okay. No.
Jagiello?
Yes.
The bill?
Just to remind you that the reason we made the changes were budget concerns. So, you know, I specifically remember, Steve, working on that side of that building, that Fulton Bryant side, and your concern with that. So we made a specific point to have that look exactly the same except for the patio, because I knew that really was important to you. So I would just like to remind you that trying to take it back to something we can't afford, I don't know where we go from there. So.
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Zabilla?
Right. So,
Yes.
Foster?
No.
Merck?
yes.
Nicklin?
No.
Okay. So that motion didn't fly.
It's a tie.
Motion fails.
Failed. Yeah. So
What happens is the motion fails, so you need to craft something else.
we need someone else to make a different motion.
So
Which
where
I'm
does
open
that
to.
lie when someone's budget is affected on that? How do we force somebody to do something that's already an improvement? It's an improvement on what's there, okay?
Well, I look at it, I don't know the answer to that. I think you'd have to know what their personal finances are to answer that. But I look at what went before us, what they presented to us, and the process. There was a long process. It was continued, at least on 2 accounts, I believe, to get to that point. I would think that it would be due diligence on the applicant to have a clue of what they were getting involved in at the time of that submittal, because you know, in terms of the construction, by talking to their architect, having a good architect, probably a builder involved, and have a really sense of direction with this. Also, this is a commercial development. I mean, it is a commercial project. It's there. It exists in part as a financial, you know, incentive to provide service, but also to be profitable. So I think there's a balance there to look at as well. They got a beautiful building, the potential for a beautiful building. They've taken great steps forward in that direction. They got a ways to go yet. I think that there are a few things that they could do to that plan. I think eliminating, I'm looking at the fenestration at the entrance there, and it was considerably diminished from what was on the approved set. Eliminating that trellis and that extension out there, I could live probably without the fireplace, but I just think right now it's just lacking. And if they want, we could do a continuation with this meeting, have them come back if they want to, and provide us new drawings to try to meet our, what we think, if they're willing to go there, what might meet some of our expectations. Or we can just propose another motion and yes or no it. So that's what
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change. So,
Yeah.
Mac, do you have any input on that?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, now granted, I was not here in the original incarnations, but it does seem that we're diminishing the sense of arrival, you know, by removing these out, by removing the exterior elements. You know, is coming from a building background, you know, the trellises aren't a huge expense, but I know that's all subjective. What might be a minimal expense to one person could be a major expense to another person. I do think that I would recommend to the applicant that they might want to reconsider taking this back and, you know, modifying the drawing somewhat, finding a balance between what was before and what we have here this evening. That's all I really have on, as far as suggestions and what I offer. I would recommend a continuance.
Yeah. So Kathleen, if we continued this, could we have it at the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks? Would that?
Could you have it?
Yeah, I mean, could we bring it back
I
on the
guess you
agenda
need
by
to
then?
ask the applicant if they could be
I
ready
know,
by then. I
that's
mean,
a whole sub-problem, but-
it really requires no, I'm sorry, what?
It had to be legal notice by today at noon.
No, he would just
It'd
continue
be a
it.
continuance.
Yeah, it's just a continuation.
So we could
It doesn't really
theoretically
require
have it in-
staff's time to do another staff report because you're asking them to change their elevations. But I have worked with them, and it was really a push for them to even, I mean, this came in today, this color rendering. So I think you need to ask the applicant
Yeah.
if
That's
he
my
can.
next step. I just wanted to make sure.
Right.
Would that be feasible for us to
Oh,
do?
yes, it's totally feasible that they could come back in if they were able to meet it. But again, you know, we have deadlines. It's 2 weeks. It really ends up being, you know, maybe a week because these things have to be available for the public. It's all about due process. It needs to be into the office. I mean, I know I said this came in late today. That's very unusual because somebody wants to see the elevations, you know, the neighbors are concerned. They have a right to see them before the meeting too.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a pretty tight time frame.
All right. So let me ask you guys, why don't you come on up, Mike? So it sounds like the consensus here is we need to continue this and get some more feedback about that centerpiece.
Yeah.
Would that be feasible for you guys to do in terms of?
I'm giving my architect one more minute to tell us that. But again, to go back, Commissioner Foster, about the due diligence part, because we heard that loud and clear. And you're right, the changing the roof lines caused the shear wall requirements. So the engineering, we didn't do enough due diligence on the engineering. And once we did that, we realized that this was prohibitive. We cannot do what was drawn, and there it is. So cosmetically, I'm sorry, we tried to go ahead and just use what's there, which that entrance back there exists. It's all existing now, and to cosmetically improve it so that we could actually have enough money to do the really nice addition on the other side, the west side. So that was our thinking and our hope.
Sure. Well,
I don't know
I guess
how we can.
I would be hoping for something that resembles more closely what was originally approved.
Mm-hmm.
This just falls, in my opinion, short of that. And I think there are things you could probably work with this existing design to make that happen. that you would have to add on to it, you know? You'd have to extend the current design in some fashion. It's more than just the roof line. You eliminated the shingles, the glazing. There's a lot going on here. The stone. I mean, there's a lot to it that really made the original design, approval design, pop. And it's not.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is we feel like that the way we have our campus designed, that's the back of our building. That's not where you drive up and present yourself. So we're kind of feeling like we're dressing up, you know, where we get our trash picked up back there. And so it's not as important to us that that's a beautiful entrance, because it's not going to be used that way. The parents and visitors are all going to come in from the courtyard side. So that's we're trying to balance out, where are we going to spend our money? Well, we've got to spend it where it's going to make the most impact on our clients and so forth. So
I think we're kind of looking at it from the.
All right, Mr. Graves, I've given you enough time. 2 weeks? No? We can't do it in 2 weeks.
I think you would probably be hard-pressed to get it, even if it were fully approved tonight, I think you'd be very hard-pressed to get it built by May, would be my inclination.
All right. Well, I'm willing to entertain another motion if someone would like to make one.
Well, Lawrence, you haven't said anything. You were one of the consenting votes. What would it, I understand Steve's point, but I also understand that when you do a design review, you don't always have the structurals all figured out. You can't. And so it's kind of a conceptual view. And sometimes when you go to those structurals, there is some major considerations that come into play. And when they come into play, it's hard to force someone to comply with something that doesn't work in their budget. So that my contention is that the design, even though it doesn't follow the original design, it's a much better, and it's an improvement on what's there.
I agree with that. I was thinking if there was going to be a compromise, that it could be something where some of those features were still used. The stone maybe a little bit in the front, and I don't know if that's possible to.
And maybe I'd like to have a little discussion about that, Steve. Is there something that we could, add to this?
Well, I think that's what I'm saying. I'm suggesting that, the function is changing of that core central portion of that building. We don't have to do this design, but there are things that could be done to that that would kick it up.
Well, can we make those suggestions?
Well, I've already made suggestions. I talked about replacing the siding that was already showed on there. Consider the fenestration. I think a trellis out there would make a big, a major improvement to it. That type of thing. I don't think we're talking in the big scope of thing, major financial. I'm not going into the interior of that building and changing the shear walls.
Are you folks open to this discussion here of looking at some of the?
Can you come up to the microphone, Jane?
The trellis as originally drawn was actually, the weight of it was put on an interior wall, and the contractor for the footings said it's a raised floor, but there's no room to get in there. I mean, literally, you've got this much room to crawl. So then they're talking about cutting into walls and flooring and pulling back in order to get those footings in. So if we had a shorter trellis, it's possible that also there was some analysis of the earth, and so they wanted us to go 5 feet beyond the trellis and dig down 3 feet and recompact that soil, and that would be ripping up the driveway and the curb. So it looks simple. A trellis in and of itself, you could put a small trellis on for not a lot of money, but the size of the trellis, the way it was drawn after the building had been popped out, would push the recompaction of the soil and would also put weight on the footings. And the building that is there is actually crooked. Once we found that out, once we built the part that was, the addition that was completed. So we sort of realized when we got into the interior of the existing building, the issues that were there. So I could certainly see something I can see siding, I can see maybe some rock details.
So you're saying, Jane, that existing roof is pretty much there already, right? Didn't you mention that earlier? The existing roof line in the center there? Yes.
That's just a little awning over that building.
Then you have a parapet that's hiding it, right?
It's a flat roof.
So the intent is to leave the existing perimeter wall there, correct?
Right. But that, on the approved drawings, that's not what we did. We pulled it all out.
You pulled,
New wall.
okay.
We moved forward.
So, okay, so what you would like to do is leave that existing wall where it is right now. Exactly. So I don't see any reason or need that you would have to go into the interior side of that wall to support a trellis if you hang that trellis off that wall, off that existing wall. I mean, that's a very viable solution. And would forego all this foundation stuff you're talking about now on the exterior as far as supporting a trellis and what would be required engineer-wise. That's dictated by your soils analysis. It sounded like it's something really can't comment on unless you're looking at soil reports and that sort of thing. But I don't see it as being a major renovation to this thing.
So are you thinking the trellis
Standalone
all the way
trellis?
around, or
And
just
off the
at
existing wall line, as a continuation of the roof line, it's almost like a pitch break, What I'm trying to do here, my whole point is, how do I break up all that plaster mass that's there? I mean, that's what strikes me, as I visualize these things. What's going to provide a focal point that looks nice and harmonizes the building components together? And I'm not getting that with what you have here. Another thing that it would be not cost prohibitive would be the siding application that you do have on this. And I don't think that was a stone face that we had going up in that area. Wasn't it just shingles?
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Well, that's because it was a new wall.
Right.
It was the
But you could
and
do
there
that.
are the things that you can't see here
you
is
could
that you
shingle
do
over that
have.
plaster
You
and
do
then-
have, one part of the building is here, another part is here, then the conference room is here, and then the other. So there is sort of, it's not like a blank wall of stucco. There is a lot of depth.
In and out stuff.
And in and outs, but.
Well, I can't really design it for you. And I don't have no intention to. You have an architect. I'm just trying to give you a perspective,
Okay. Well, would you follow that up with a motion?
Well, I'm still sticking with the
You
same
still-
motion.
well, you got your motion, yeah, but-
Because I still.
That motion got defeated, so we
Okay,
got
want
to
me
go
to-
with a new
all
motion.
right, okay.
Yeah,
I'd like to make a motion that we continue this item.
All right. Are we going to continue it to a date certain or to, yes?
First meeting in January. Sherry, what is the first meeting in January?
To the first meeting in January. I mean,
That's HPC.
well, the first Wednesday in
Yeah.
January.
Our first meeting in January.
As long as the architect can meet that, I would, well, if he can't, then we'll just continue it again.
Yeah.
How's that?
We could do
That's
that.
fine.
All right. Max made a motion. Would someone like to second it?
I'll second it.
All right. Could we have a roll call, please?
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Jagiello?
No.
Isabella?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Merck?
Yes.
Nicklin?
Yes.
All right. So,
Could you also, as part of maybe amend the motion and say continue it and give them specific directions of what you'd like them
I think
to come
we've been
back?
pretty
Okay.
specific
Okay.
about what we want to see.
Okay, good. I just want to make
So
sure.
We will look forward to seeing you in January, and we'll see if we can get this centerpiece figured out. I think everything else is pretty squared away. It's just that centerpiece. Thank you. All right. And thank you, everybody in the public, for putting up with this. We are now moving on to item 5, I believe. Item 5 is our design review permit, DRP 14-17, for the installation of new lighting at the skate park at 450 East Ojai Avenue. Assessor's parcel number is 022-0140670. General plan land use designation of the site is public, quasi-public, and the zoning classification of the site is public, quasi-public. And I appreciate you guys staying through this whole meeting to be able to
You're
talk
bored,
about
I'm sure.
this. So could we hear from staff on this, please?
Okay. Thank you very much. And tonight before you is the design review permit for the installation of new lighting for the skate park. And I think the important part of this project is the attachments to this and to the staff report. And attachment C gives you the overall view of the lights, the timers, and the photometrics, the elevation, the look of the light standards. And we would just like to make it, point out the fact that our new dark sky ordinance, as I read into the record for the previous item, has very specific guidelines for lighting regulations for recreational facilities. And I have, I think the package, you can very much see that it was well thought out, computer-generated light plan that, if you look at the photometric, it even has, placement of the light standards, the rays of each head. You can see the overall lighting. You can see its relationship to the Fox Barinka. So I think it's just a very thorough and application showing that they're lighting the skate park sufficient to do the activity without imposing undue spill of light to any outside properties or the community at large. And so with that, I just think that we have provided with enough information, and we have included the resolution for approval. And with that, I'm available for if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Anybody? Now, we need to hear from the applicant, and that's the City of Ojai Parks and Recreation Department. Steve, you're going to represent? I was hoping we'd get Sunday up here to talk about it.
You could ask Sunday.
All right.
Thank you very much, Chair Merck, members of the Planning Commission. This has been a long haul working on this project, and I'm very pleased that we're able to bring this to you tonight, hopefully for your approval. We've taken this through and gotten approval and recommendations for approval from the Skateboard Operations Committee, the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Ojai City Council, the Fillmore Unified School District Board of Trustees, and lastly, it is here before the Planning Commission. So I think we've gotten it to every city commission except for the Historic Preservation Commission, Arts Commission, and the Building Appeals Board. So this is the last stop. It may seem a little out of order to folks as to why this is coming to you after going to the City Council. And the simple explanation for that is the City Council, in essence, is part of they are the applicant here, since they really are the key holders of the city. The City Council, we needed their approval for this project, as well as the approval from the school district as the property owner before we could come forward before this body for approval of a modified lighting plan. The current facility has a lighting plan for the park and ride facility and not for recreational night lighting, and therefore that is why it is before this body, as I stated, for consideration and approval tonight. We have gone through quite a journey, as I alluded to, in developing this plan. Really, the genesis of this project is due to the good folks at Skate Ojai. They are really the ones who initiated this and then pretty much passed it along to the city to try and bring it to fruition. The original plan was a metal halide lighting design, which put out some rather intense light, and we had massaged that for quite some time. But we were still having some issues with the metal halide plan. And at that point, technology provided us a new option, which is using LED lights. And so that is what you have before you tonight is a plan to light the skate park using the LED lights. As noted in the previous item, the lights would be on they would not be on all the time. They would only be on when somebody's actually in the park and activating the motion sensor for the lights. And we did not propose that they would be on past 10 p.m. And certainly we could curtail that if we had issues or if we had complaints, but that is the plan at this point, is to allow them to operate until 10 p.m. They not only, as Kathleen noted, they do conform to the city's requirements for recreational lighting, but we also looked at it and studied it from the standpoint of ensuring that it was providing adequate lighting for the recreational activity as well. With the skate park, that is actually quite a challenge because we're not lighting a flat surface. We're lighting a surface that up and down. The bowl is fairly deep. And so I should note that Jared Dominguez with Mar Vista Lighting is here. They are professional lighting designers, and they designed this lighting plan, and we worked with them on that. And he is also here to answer any questions. Incidentally, they were the ones who designed the lights at the Libby tennis courts as well. There is shielding on these lights, and we have been stating throughout the process here that we do not want to create anything that is a monstrosity or an eyesore, particularly to folks that are traveling on Ojai Avenue. We don't believe that this plan, as designed and proposed, we actually think it's a good plan in terms of limiting the light and reducing that spillover. It does not exceed the 1 foot candle beyond the property line, so we're okay on that. But we've always stated from the beginning that if there were issues and we needed to come and do further shielding, that we would certainly be open to that. I know you probably hear that typical promise maybe from applicants. However, I would say we're the city and we will be held to that word. So if we do have problems with the lights and how they're particularly being viewed by folks on Ojai Avenue, we're certainly willing to take a look at that until we get it right. Just a couple things just to, I know there's a lot of detail here in the staff report, and I'd be happy to go through that with you. Perhaps if you have any specific questions, I can answer those. But I also want to address a little bit in terms of the next steps, just for yourselves and members of the public. My marching orders have been to try to get this through all the city approvals, and then at that point we will re-engage the community, whether that's Skate Ojai or other donors, to actually come up with the funding for the project. Right now there is no identified city funding for this project. We're always, again, much the way a lot of things are done in Ojai, it's a grassroots effort, and we expect that we would, again, as I stated, to re-engage the community if we are able to get the approvals of this and then actually work with them towards some fundraising for a project. And then ultimately that project would be turned over to the city. Either they would build the project and turn it over to the city, or they would raise funds and give those funds to the city then to construct the project. But at the end of the day, they would be a lighting project owned by the city of Ojai for use by the community. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the many people that have supported this and made this happen, particularly Chet Hilgers at Skate Ojai and Wendy Hilgers, and the members of the skating community, and certainly members of the Park and Recreation Commission who have also supported this as well. And lastly, I want to give a special thank you to J.R. Dominguez of Mar Vista Sales for all his work on this project. He has really been a delight to work with, and it's nice to know that we have a professional design in place for your review. I'd be happy to answer any questions or any details about the information presented in the staff report. And again, the lighting designer is here if you have any technical questions for him.
Great. Do we have questions? Steve, I'm curious about this photometric plan. Maybe you guys could answer that. How
Sure.
complicated is it to do this? Is it expensive? I'm just thinking about the Wild Tennis Academy, but I'm just curious
JR, answer
what's
that.
involved there.
Yeah, the amount of time that it took us to do it was really a matter of just a few hours. Most of it comes from the information that we're given. We typically do it in a CAD format, so the way that the information is transferred over to us is if we have everything there, then it's easy to put fixtures in, relocate fixtures, change the wattage on the fixtures, do whatever we need to do. In the case of the skate park, what we were doing was we changed even the angle that that the fixtures were being directed at. So you'll see on the proposal that It almost looks like a shower coming from each of those poles. It was designed and intended not only for the light that was traveling horizontally, but also the light as it was traveling vertically.
Great, thank you. I had another question about LED lights. Can they focus as well as the traditional incandescent lights and so on? I mean,
much better. Typically, what would happen when Steve was talking earlier about the HID, most of the way that light was being directed was due to a reflector that was built around it. With the LEDs, the light is going in one direction. LEDs have a property, and depending on how you space the LEDs and even smaller reflectors behind those, you can vary between a very tight distribution or a wide distribution.
well, that's great. Thank you. Sure.
As for a recreational facility, what guides your work with regard to safety and really with safety? Are you guided by state standards or?
Thank you. Our guidelines are IES standards, International Engineering Society. So the engineers determine what the application is and what the proper amount of light is. Those standards have actually been reduced, if you will. I'll take the example of an office where the standards used to be 35-foot candles or 55-foot candles. Now it's been reduced to 20-foot candles, and that is due to the application of the LED light. LEDs now have the ability of not only giving you adequate amount of light, but it gives you the color, and it actually lights around the surface, so shadows are eliminated. So what's happening is that the IES has looked at rooms and they've said a particular room doesn't need to have a whole bunch of light in there. That almost lends itself to dark skies, and I could explain further on that if you choose. But the reason that with LEDs, what we've been able to do is we've been able to reduce the light levels and still develop a comfortable work environment.
Is there some different standard for recreational activities?
There is, if it's softball, if it's football, if it's tennis, if it's recreational tennis versus professional tennis. There are different standards. There are different light level standards that need to be accomplished.
And then in terms of the height of the fixture, what guides that?
Really what area we're lighting up and how many pole locations we're going to have. Obviously, the higher that we go, the more light spread that we get. But there are also situations where we can accomplish light levels through different methods. A longer davit arm that comes off of a pole, and I'm referring to the tennis courts. I just sat through that. But the idea is that it can be accomplished either through pole height or different modifications to the pole.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I hope you'll be talking to people at Weil about their courts.
I can leave my business card.
That would be great. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, Mike.
I got one. So how far away from the lip are these poles? Are they set back a bit or
They're set back, I think, 10 to 12 feet away from the lip. Yeah, it definitely out of harm's way.
Thanks.
Great. Other questions? Thank you very much. I appreciate getting real data on this stuff. That was very nice.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Any other questions for Steve?
Okay,
No?
thank you very much.
So, okay. This is a public hearing, and I have 2 speakers' cards. And the first is for Shane Allen.
Hi, my name's Shane Allen, Commission, staff, thank you. Basically, I'm just here to inform you and just a little bit of education. Since the skate park was built here in Ojai 4 years ago, we've had quite a few major influences in the skateboard industry move to this area just because of the skate park. Me, myself, I moved to this area. I'm a professional skateboarder. I moved to this area because Ventura had nothing to offer as far as a skate park. I raised my family here. I have a 2-year-old son. My wife works here in town. I also work here in town. We have a gold medalist from the X Games that moved here just for this skate park. On this last Thursday, he posted a video that's seen by over hundreds of thousands of people, from parents, children, business owners, people that are in the skateboard industry and all other aspects of this world, all around the world. People have seen his videos of the Ojai skate park. The things that come to play with that are our little tiny skate park that was brought out with, you know, Hilgers, Earth Movers. That's Wendy Hilgers and Chris Hilgers and Chet and Casey Hilger, or Casey Myers, and everyone else that was involved. It's turned into something that's been seen all around the world. And that being said, the lights are nothing but a positive thing as far as, you know, all the people that have come to this area to enjoy the skate park. On top of that, we have other professional athletes that have moved up here that work for Nike. We've got professional, movie stars, basically. They raise their family here. Also, I know one in particular, he comes and skates also. He's got 4 kids. And not only that, is I spend a lot of time at the skate park, and I see hundreds of kids every single weekend come to enjoy the skate park. And I also volunteer for the city and for Skate Ojai, and you know, doing everything I see in this time that I'm there, the hundreds of hours that I've spent there. All the kids, their parents basically have to drag them away at this time during the year when it gets dark at 5 o'clock. The kids, you know, maybe need to do their homework. They can't get to the skate park quick enough. The parents maybe don't get off work in time. So the lights would be amazing. And, you know, again, I thank you for this time. And I look forward to anything positive for the kids in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Sunday Rylander.
Still get nervous, sorry.
I know. Sunday, I want to compliment you and everybody else on Parks and Rec for putting that skate park together.
Oh, thank you.
Sounds amazing.
It was a huge community effort.
I know.
And I kind of want to talk about that. Obviously, the Hilgers were huge to make that happen and bring it. And I think Casey was my son's age when it started, and now he's 15, but Casey was just a little guy. I want to just let you know, as far as the budget, I'm starting with the last thing I wrote on my notes. Okay. As far as the budget, the skate park was built we raised $360,000 in 6 months. So I don't feel concerned with raising the money for the lights. I just want you to know that. As a community, it's been totally supported. Very positive experience. And the opportunity to have lights and have a facility that's existing that can have extended hours is huge. And the group, not necessarily just the group, but this group of teenagers that go there, to give them another 4 hours of time to do physical activity is huge. So I just would hope you'd consider that. And then, what else did I want to say? And then the adults, you know, Shane works all day, Todd works all day, but if they could go skate at night, that would be great. And for parents who work, to go see their kids skate after work would be really nice. And yeah, and I had seasonally, so it's dark now, so we don't get to skate, but during the summer, it's so hot that, like, my son usually has like this little window to run down there and skate, you know, so they, you know, can't skate at night when it's 100 degrees out, so it'd be really helpful. And I'm rambling, and I'm sorry, but the other thing I wanted to tell you is the only thing I'd like you to consider that's in the proposal this evening is I don't feel like we need a public hearing. This has been a 4-year process. I think we've considered everything. Steve and the city have been absolutely amazing. The gentleman that worked on the lights, he's gone in it and in it and in it. I can't tell you how many times to get exact ratio of lighting in the bowl. This is not just, you know, something they did last week. It's been 4 years of work. So, and I think that since it's gone through City Council and been approved, and gone through Ojai Parks and Recreation Commission and been approved, and the Ojai Unified School District Board has approved it, and all those are public, and many of them are televised, as well as this one, that I think everyone is having an opportunity in the city of Ojai to come and participate and speak tonight if they wanted to. So I would like to take that off the proposal or recommendation if possible. I feel like we've done due diligence. So that's all I had to say. If you have any questions, I really appreciate you considering the lights. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunday. This is a public hearing.
I know, but I think it said on there that they wanted to have like a public hearing on the recommendations.
This is a public hearing.
This is it.
No, I know it is, but was it on there that it?
Yeah, we're the
Recommendations?
right. We are in the public hearing portion right now.
Okay. I
And
know.
so when
I
the
thought they wanted to have another open forum. I was like, oh my God.
no, what
gotta do this again?
the chair will take public comments until there is nobody
Oh.
else to speak, and then at that point he will consider
Oh my
closing
God,
the
I thought we
public
had to have
hearing.
one more meeting.
No, this is what a public hearing looks like.
Okay. I thought, you know what I meant, like we've done the other
Yeah,
open
no.
forums.
We don't need anybody
Okay,
format.
thank you. I just want to be done.
All right. So to reiterate, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this? I know this is for a different item, though. It's for item number 9. I'm going to close the public hearing. Carmen, you sure you don't want to? You could? No? Okay. All right. All right. I appreciate everybody coming, and I appreciate you sitting through all that other boring stuff to get to this point. All right, the public hearing is closed. Is there any discussion among the commission? Mac?
I thank you all for your dedication and work through the whole process. It's really a great thing that we've come together for, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it's just been an amazing project for the kids in Ojai and the community as well. And, you just see how much it's used, and just, providing this lighting is going to extend those hours out, and, summer, and especially now in the winter time. And, it helps everybody around, the surrounding businesses, everything is affected by this. It's a great project.
Anything else? Yeah, I don't think we've ever had a chance to thank you guys for putting it all together, so thank you. Would someone like to propose a motion?
I make a motion to approve this thing
You got to get all those numbers in there.
oh, sorry. The,
DRP 14-17.
resolution, the approval of the design review permit, 1417 to allow for lighting the skate park property located at 450 East Ojai Avenue.
All right, you're going to accept the secret categorical exemption?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, you're going to approve it subject to conditions of approval?
Yes.
Okay. Could we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Rosalie. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Jagiello.
Yes.
Isabella.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Merck.
Yes.
Nicklin.
Yes.
All right.
Passes.
Permission to clap?
You can do that if you like. yeah. Look forward to getting those lights up. Then when you get done with that, you can move over to Sarasota Park and do that whole thing too, because, yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thanks you guys for coming out.
We'll let you continue to.
Yeah, this is
6, 7, 8, 9.
another public hearing. All right, we're moving on to item 6, which I believe, do we have to have a motion to continue this, or is that?
I think so. I think that's,
All right.
that's what we're trying to make sure all our bases are covered, so we appreciate it.
All right, I will entertain a motion to continue design review permit DRP 14-18 for the renovation at historic landmark number 9.
So I will make a motion to continue the design review permit DRP 1418 for the renovation of the historic landmark number 9 of Ojai Valley Inn and Spa.
All right, are we?
Do we need a
continuing it
date
to
certain?
Yeah,
or-
yes, you're continuing it to the special joint meeting with the Planning Commission and Historic Preservation Commission on December 11th at 5 o'clock.
Duly noted.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Rosalie. Any discussion? I'll have to say, I probably won't be at that meeting because.
Yeah, who of us are going to be at that meeting?
Yeah.
I have plans for that evening, so
wait.
I will not be there.
I can be there at 6, but not at 5, so.
I mean,
We already did a roll through email, and we know we have enough commissioners.
So there's 7 of you. We need 4 for sure. If somebody's sick, you for sure need to let me know, and then I guess we would continue the item till your availability to come at 6. It
That'd be
is
fine. You guys
kind
can
of
wait that
paramount that we try to move this project through. And, you know,
Can't we make it 6 and just, then can't we do that?
we've already,
It's the historic preservation people, they have to go to bed early.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What did you say? Oh, well, so the idea, everything's been noticed, and the idea is that we have a special meeting. They will hear the work permit. Help me out with this, Sheriff, if I'm not saying this correctly. You will hear the DRP, you will adjourn, and they'll have their regular meeting. So yes, it is going to be a long night for them. So I think Mr. Foster wasn't going to be able to come, and I think Mac also.
I can, initially it looked like I couldn't come. I think that I can make arrangements to be there.
That would be great.
We
So,
had determined there would be 4.
yeah, we're just,
Okay.
obviously we like the bigger the group, the better. As we saw tonight, every time there's an even number, we have an issue. So that's great. Thank you.
Okay, we need to vote on this motion.
Aye.
Could we have a roll call, please?
He was going to add something. So Lajowski.
Aye.
Jagiello.
Yes.
Zabilla.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Merck.
Yes.
Nicklin.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to item 7, which is the director report and director actions.
So I can read these into the record, or I'd just like to put one point of clarification, the last one, which is T1427, the Valero gas station, that actually hasn't been approved, that we're actually still working on that. Tree permit, they did apply for it, but it's still missing some issues, in the arborist report. So I'm open to any questions you might have on any of the others.
1408, what is a home occupation? Oh, they want to do a business out of their residential neighborhood? Or
Yep.
That's it on? And there's a permit available to do that?
Yep.
Thank you. Could we move on to item 8, report on current code enforcement activity?
Yeah, item 8 is code enforcement, and continues to be, consume a lot of our time, and you might know that City Council, I think this is the last time we were told that City Council has provided us with an additional staffing for that, 30 hours a week, and I think that job calls out now for an interim code enforcement officer, or compliant, inspector, I think we're calling them. And so we're moving through these, and a lot of the cases that were the ones that were the oldest are actually falling off, I'm happy to say. And some of the ones that, obviously the oldest ones probably were, the reason they were old was they're the most complex, but they are moving off. And so we expect that with, once we get our inspector on staff, they will be working some non-traditional hours, so it won't be 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. So some of the things that happen in the community during the weekends, we'll have an officer out there, so.
We're down to 1 page now.
I know, we're doing good. We're really doing good. We've been really I'm working on procedures for the code enforcement officer. We've got a pamphlet going out, and we've really worked to get it to where it's pretty standardized, and how we're working with it to the extent it can be with something that's like this, but it's benefited us.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 9, and Mr. Coalici, I have a speaker's card for you here. Would you like to?
Thank you, sir. Steve Quillisi, 516 West Eucalyptus Street. I'm sad to come and speak to you because I am disappointed at the proceedings that I've seen tonight in one aspect, and that is with regard to Weil Academy. I heard no one on your side of the table object in any way to the large commons building that they wanted to put up. And your decision tonight tells them they can't start that either. I understand the aesthetic disagreements that exist on the commission right now about that little central piece with the brickwork and the trellis and all of that. But you have sent an applicant who is an important part of our community away from here with nothing to show for all of the effort that they've put in. And if there is any way that you can, at this point, at least let them start the large building and have, because he said, we'd like to get this done by May so we can have our graduation. That's in that big commons building that no one objected to in any aspect whatsoever. If you could reconsider that now and at least let them put that building up while you wait to see how aesthetically pleasing the little central section with the old lobby or the trellis or whatever it is, I think you'd be doing the community a service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Quillisi. Would you like to speak on the future agenda items?
Yes, sir. Okay, so I guess Sherry's put in here conveniently for you the dinner that occurs on December 12th. And just a reminder, if you haven't RSVP'd or talked to Amber about that, you need to do that. December 11th, we have our joint meeting with the Historic Preservation Commission in which we're going to talk about the proposed renovations to the Ojai Valley Inn. And the 17th, I don't think we have anything on the 17th, do we? Nope, so I guess you need to consider whether you want to, what?
We have the Ojai Valley Inn concept review that could potentially go on it.
Oh, you're talking about the
I mean,
hospital?
the Ojai Hospital, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have a, potentially we could have that, I don't know. Staff is working with some new contract planners. I've worked with one for 2 days, and I've had another one, so I'm still trying to ramp up and get people, I mean, they need to learn Ojai's codes and regulations. So what I'm trying to say is it's a little bit slower than what you would have been used to in the past year as we work in new people. So I don't know that just came in today. So I doubt that they're going to be up to speed. I mean, that agenda, if it's the 17th, you have to back it back, they'd have like a week to work on it. So I don't know if you want to just have something else come before you or something that I can bring to you, but I'll try. I guess we could leave it on the books and try for that if you guys want to have that meeting or if you want to cancel it. It's kind of really, you won't be here. Okay, is there anybody else that's not going to be here?
Perhaps we should consider canceling that meeting. Anybody? You want to wait? Can we, do you need a vote from us, or can we?
Well,
May I say something?
Yes, please, thank you.
So you're going to need 10 days' notice
Mhm.
for any public hearing matters
That's
that
right.
pop forward. So if we pop back from the 17th, that takes us to the 7th.
Mhm.
So I would say wait till the 7th to find out if anything comes up.
Concept review doesn't require public notice.
No, but a
Okay.
design review possibly could. And
So concept reviews don't require notice, but we all know that
It's a good
it's a
idea.
good idea. So, we have in the past, the issue with not noticing concept review is that if you don't notice the public, you're not really doing the applicant any kind of service because they're not really getting those that would have concerns out to this. All they're really getting is your input. And often they need the neighbor's input too. So we like to notice.
So you could notice via the newspaper.
Mhm.
Would that be the
Right, we do
vehicle?
it just standard as if it was anything else, so people would know, and, it's a matter of just, because that's we can see that all of us don't anticipate everything until we get noticed, and then we get the feedback from the neighbors, which is really important. So yes, we can wait till the 7th, and then,
Well, if the 7th is on a Sunday, does it
Yeah.
automatically make Monday the the final?
Oh, no,
deadline?
he's talking about it has to go in today.
It would have to go in by Friday.
He's
Oh,
talking
yeah,
about,
because-
Sherry's had a very long
For it to
day,
be noticed,
today.
that's what I'm saying, that's
Her
2
brain
days.
is fading. It would have to have gone into noon today, so we can't have any public
That
hearings.
pretty well.
Yeah, so we might as well just cancel the meeting, yes.
All right. But do you need a vote from us for that, or can you just do
I
that
think-
by fiat?
Do we need to vote?
All right.
Okay. Then, January 7th, we'll have there's a number of, let's see. Well, this one right here has been kind of floating around a little bit. Believe, is it actually complete now, the shed? Okay. We'll probably, and the 7th, again, we'll have the tennis academy on.
Yeah.
And, there are other things we're working on here. We continue to be busy, I guess I should say. We didn't see any slowdown with the winter, so with that, I guess.
Where did we decide to put the Weir Tennis Academy?
On the 7th
So
of
that's going to go there for sure.
January.
Okay.
And I would just ask that you keep all of the paperwork that you have in your binder, and Sherry will retain it so that we don't have to make copies of all that again, and then we'll just add on to it. And if you would like, then I'll include in there the initial study and those other items that we talked about earlier tonight.
All right. Good. Mr. Blatz.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. I thought that I was at least going to see your smiling faces one more time on the 17th, but that sure changed 2 minutes ago. So this will be my last tour with you until probably close to a year. As you know, we rotate every 3 months. So with 5 of us, we rotate around. I guess it's 4 of us that rotate and 1 doesn't. So once again, it's never easy being on the Planning Commission. You're always asked to make difficult decisions. And I particularly appreciate your deliberation, your thoughtfulness, and the fact that you really do serve our city well. So thank you. I really appreciate it. Tuesday at the City Council meeting will be the changing of the guard. We're going to have 2 new council members that will be sworn in. I'll be sworn in again, having been reelected. There'll be a new mayor elected. So it ought to be an interesting meeting. I think if you saw the paper today, you saw that our city attorney has resigned. So the council has to deal with that. Mr. Fletcher has gotten a job up in the Bay Area as a chief counsel for a retirement fund. I think it's the Oakland Municipal Retirement Fund or something like that. So he's going to be moving up there, and he has offered to stay with us as long as need be until we have a successor. And the council will be deciding exactly how we want to handle, recruiting a successor and how long we really need Mr. Fletcher to stay. Other than that, I don't have anything for you. Do you have any questions of me? No?
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Appreciate your
Christmas dinner.
Yeah, well.
Christmas dinner.
Yeah, have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll see you on the 8th for the thank you dinner. Is it the 12th? Okay, and then I'll be here on the 7th. What is it? What's the date of the joint meeting?
11th.
The 11th. Well, then I will see you again, those of you that are here,
Yep.
because I'll plan on coming to that. That's a pretty important meeting. I don't know who the liaison to the HPC is. Is it? Okay. She won't be, that'll be, is that?
That's right, that will be past her.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, so I don't know who'll be here on that. Probably we'll have to have somebody appointed just for that meeting, maybe. But anyway, thank you again. It's been a pleasure meeting with you twice a month for the last 2.5 months, and just thanks again for all the work that you put in.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
Yep. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.